So let's start. So for those returning participants, welcome back, dear friends. And for those who are joining for the first time, I would like to welcome you to the Access Israel network of experts, policymakers, technologies, service providers, representatives from the business world, and so many others. We are all connected by the understanding that accessibility and inclusion are an issue we have to address. Please note, more than 650 representatives from more than 70 countries, that was true to this morning, it probably has grown even more, have joined us. We couldn't be more excited to see this ongoing growth of our community, which is building up to an amazing ecosystem. The motto here is very simple: join forces, share, remove barriers, and leave no one behind. And before we begin with our amazing speakers, as always, if I talk about a community, I have to take a second to thank the partners, our friends who helped us get here, who continue to help us reach amazing achievements as a community. First, our friends and partners, thank you Google, AbleDocs, and the American Embassy in Israel and Language People for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you, Zero Project, for the ongoing partnership and leadership in this field. I say it every time, and I'm proud to say it again. You are the reason we started all this. So thanks again, and you're with us all the time. And thanks to the amazing friends, and I'm so lucky to call them our friends, Valuable 500, Enable, Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Microsoft, ONSE, IAAP, G3 ICT, Christopher Reeve Foundation, Help for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austria, and Manzil from the Emirates. A special thanks to Deborah Rue from Global Impact, who helped us again to organize the amazing panel we will have this webinar. And of course, to Phaser, Friends of Access Israel in the USA, who is helping us from behind the scenes all the way. So we started these webinars as a response to COVID-19 to come together and work together and help each other overcome the challenges posed by the pandemic. Each country has its own set of challenges, but we are all united in the struggle with COVID. Today, unfortunately, it has become clear it's not going anywhere, and it will stay probably have a lasting effect on our future. Therefore, it is important to make sure accessibility and inclusion are part of this post-COVID world. For the largest minority in the world, people with disabilities, and of course the elderly, we need to make sure that today and in the future, this will be part of the considerations to enable people with disabilities and the elderly to conduct their lives as equal, with respect and with maximum independence. The topic of today's webinar, creating trends for accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities and the elderly. This is an important topic that basically is connected to everything we've discussed up till now in the last 5-6 months. And we chose this subject after we received many requests from participants who heard about the amazing presentations in the webinars and asked, how do we begin? How do we create a trend successfully? How do we touch the hearts and minds of people and encourage them to create a more accessible and inclusive society for all? How can we make sure the public and policymakers understand, and more importantly, are players helping the cause for our team? Raising awareness for the importance of accessibility and bringing people together to join the accessibility revolution is all about trends, long-lasting trends. And while speakers we brought on board today are inspiring, amazing people in their field, my personal dream is that there will be a time we are not looking for superstars or superheroes when it comes to disabilities, but rather they will be like everybody else. Some amazing and superstars, and others annoying and boring, all an inclusive part of our society, being recognized for who they are, what they do, not their disability. And I am very, very happy to start with the opening remarks from Harriet Schleifer. Harriet is the president of the American Jewish Committee, a global Jewish advocacy organization, and she serves on the executive committee of the Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations in the US. Harriet, among other things, serves on the executive committee of Chapel Haven Schleifer Center, a residential school and organization whose mission is to provide lifelong, individualized services for people with developmental and social disabilities, empowering them to live independent and self-determined lives. She is a real doer. And on a personal basis, I am so happy, Harriet, and excited to have you here today. You are definitely someone I want on my team. Please.
Toda rabba, Michal, and it is a pleasure to see you, and good day to all from wherever you are accessing this program today. Access. The New Oxford American Dictionary defines access as both a noun and a verb. As a noun, access is defined as a means of approaching or entering a place, and examples are offered such as the right or opportunity to use or benefit from something, the right or opportunity to approach or see someone. As a verb, it signifies the act of approaching and entering. I join you today to encourage you to set and act upon your vision of how people with disabilities or differing abilities can approach and enter, quote, the room where it happens, end quote, to take their rightful seats at the table in order to set the trend toward a more inclusive world. And before I share some background with you about Access Israel and why I support this organization, I'd like to share a little bit about my family's personal journey and some of the trends that we set for our younger son, David, who is now 34 years old. At birth, it wasn't obvious that David had special needs, but before too long, his infancy, toddlerhood, and childhood proved very difficult and milestones were not reached. The presentation was mostly cognitive with low muscle tone and fine motor challenges. But to tell you the truth, the thing that hurt the most was that we were lonely. David could not keep up with his age peer group, and social opportunities were very scarce to almost nil. When David was 5, I entered the room and took a seat at the table where the discussion was about what special needs children need in our community. I expressed the need for a summer day camp that would give these kids a chance to socialize and take advantage of the outdoors. That was the genesis of the nested day camp program within a typical summer day camp experience, and it was called Trailblazers. Around the same time, I wanted David to access our synagogue's religious school. Why not? Our family was very active, and I wanted nothing less for David. Up until that point, children with special needs in our synagogue either did not attend Hebrew school or were able enough to have one-on-one pull-out instruction with the one teacher who made it her cause to work with students who needed extra help. I proposed a more formalized program for the synagogue to buy into and adopt, and the program took off. Now we have a core group of students who could form a class and, to the extent appropriate, mainstream and participate in all the other typical classes. I won't go into detail about how our family trailblazed in our public middle and high school programs, but we did. And David was the first student who presented like he did, and our family taught the administrators, teachers, students, and their parents what differing abilities looks like and how to adapt the educational system, not only to provide David with access, but to the benefit of other more typical folks. The example of trending and trailblazing that I really would like to share with you now, and is the highlight of our lives, is the nationally accredited transitional living program and approved private special education school called Chapel Haven Schleifer Center, located in New Haven, Connecticut. Its mission is to teach adults with cognitive disabilities and social disabilities to live independent and productive lives. And we have grown to serve more than 250 adults ages 18, and we have senior citizens. It was started in 1972 by parents who wanted their young adult children to learn independent lives in a safe and nutritious environment. However, we have gotten to the point where Chapel Haven Schleifer Center is now able to provide state-of-the-art intergenerational 42-person residential community and engagement facility, which is universally designed for residents to age in place in a vibrant and non-institutional setting. This is David's permanent home, where he will age in place. And it is only one of our programs. I'm so proud of all of our programs because they're truly individualized to meet the needs of our incoming residential students, as well as our graduates, most of whom choose to live in the surrounding neighborhood and reside off campus. Now, David enjoys a full life and has access to the educational, vocational, social, and recreational opportunities available at the center, as well as the surrounding Westville and New Haven environs. Our organization is well integrated into and welcomed by the Westville business community, the local synagogue, the library, and the JCC. Trends. Trend setting is also the mission of Access Israel, which is why I celebrate it today. It was established 20 years ago by Yuval Wagner, who was encouraged to do so by former President Ezer Weitzman. It was established as a nonprofit organization to create social change. The mission, to turn Israel into an accessible and inclusive country for people with all kinds of disabilities. As a result of its international work, Access Israel launched the US-based Friends of Access Israel just down the road from me in New York City. We're happy to have people on the ground and on this side of the pond illuminating Access Israel's beacon. Friends of Access Israel was warmly welcomed last year at the home of Reuben Rivlin, Israel's president, on the occasion of its 20th anniversary. At the time, the president said, quote, "During this most moving 20th anniversary ceremony, Israel's current president noted, 'Our friends from abroad, from the United States, welcome. We appreciate very much what you are doing because this is a humanitarian need for everyone to respect human beings as a human being, not only as an Israeli or American, Brit, or Russian. We appreciate your cooperation and partnership. God bless you.'" Access Israel is one of the organizations that leads the accessibility revolution in Israel, taking a major part in legislation, consulting for implementation of accessibility, training, and education relevant to today's world. In the last 7 years, Access Israel has been very active in the global arena, promoting international sharing and learning of accessibility methodologies, projects, and policies. When COVID-19 began, it was only natural to leverage this organization's international effort to promote sharing and learning. And the number of people benefiting from this network is amazing. This has resulted in a series of successful webinars organized by Access Israel with hundreds of participants from over 80 countries from all around the world. In the past, and we have perhaps experienced this, many people were hidden. People who had disabilities were just warehoused away from society. It wasn't something that your family even discussed, nor was it publicly addressed. While in some places around the world, this is unfortunately still the case, the topic of accessibility and inclusion has come out of the closet. We are going to continue to set trends. We are not going to let COVID-19 stop us in any way. Of course, we know that this scourge has absolutely threatened the very existence of people with disabilities, largely through socialization, loneliness, inability to get around, see other people, even go to the grocery store. but we're not going to let that stop this trend of Access Israel. The silver lining here, folks, is that we are all on this webinar today, and we are going to go from strength to strength. So sit back and fasten your belts for a wonderful webinar this morning. And thank you for listening to me and allowing me to participate in this work.
Thank you so much, Harriet. We really appreciate your support. And I really hope we can see you even more connected to everybody here in the future. And I'm very happy to invite Odelia Fitoussi. Odelia is an art therapist, leads Teachers Inclusion in Schools in Merchavim Institute in Israel. She's the head of the forum of organizations promoting the implementation of rights of people with disabilities in Israel. And just last week, she was elected the official member of the UNCRPD, Committee for Rights of People with Disabilities from Israel. And we are so proud of this amazing achievement. Odelia, please.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I will do that short. I promise that I will do that short, and I keep my promise always. So I would like, first of all, to bless all the ones that joined to this wonderful webinar. I look on the list of the speaker and the topic that you are going to share with us, and I'm sure that it will be very, very interesting webinar. And most of the things I notice that how much in most of the topic, how much it's important, the way of thinking, the creative way of thinking, that I think really as a person with disability, I'm a person with disability, I live with a massive disease since I was born. It's part of our life. We have to be creativity to solve problems. And this is the story of our life. And I saw that how it appeared in all the list of all the speakers, but it's more important because it helps us to grasp the human story that connect between us and how to put it in the center and how to make it to a trend, to a movement, to a way to think, to our language. We need really to find and identify opportunities to present our special, unique conversation that is more inclusive, conversation that really naturally enrich the society. It's not only focused about us, person with disability or elderly person, but it's talking about us as a community, us as a society. And for me, I try to remember when I was young, 20 years ago, I remember that it was the website of Access Israel. And that was a real trend in Israel. It was a real trend because it gave me some information about places that are accessible and places that are not accessible. And for me as a youngster, I can control with this information. I felt more stronger. I could decide where I would like to go with my friend, what I would like to do, and which places I will never visit because they don't respect me as a human being. They don't give the access to me. And it talks about more than that. It's talk about how you give a real information and update information for people, how you put person with disability in the front, and they are the ones that leading, that understanding, that you can see us, person with disability, as a potential to untapped market. And for the end, I will just finish that next week, in the end of this week already, we're going to celebrate Hanukkah. And Hanukkah, it's talk about light, and for me, the convention, it's kind of light for me and people with disability. It's kind of light that it's very clear. It's very clean how it needs to be, how the way should be, how we talk about all the variety of disability, how all the voices are equal and important for this conversation. And I hope that we could make more and more stage, to create stage like this, to give a place and to make a place to the variety in ourselves, in our community. So enjoy everybody from this webinar.
Thank you very, very much, Odelia. And I know that you are the right person in the right job, and we are behind you, backing you up, you and the rest of the CRPD, the committee. I have no doubt we have a lot of work ahead of us, and thank you for being there. Now I would like to invite as I said, a representative of one of our greatest partners, Zero Project. And if we're talking about creating trends, I think they are one of the leaders in accessibility and people with disabilities, raising awareness to the subject. Both Zero Project and Ashoka, who Louis Van Kutsam is representing here, Director of the Impact Transfer at Ashoka in Austria. He co-founded several social enterprises and currently co-leads Impact Transfer and Ashoka initiative supporting the replication and transfer of proven social innovations to new geographies with the appropriate local partners. And Louis, I have to say no more. I'm sure you'll be saying it all, so please.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to attend this webinar today, and I look forward to learning a lot from the other speakers. Thank you to dear friends of Access Israel for this fantastic opportunity. For those who cannot see me, I'm a white male. I'm wearing a black shirt. I have a bit of a beard and my hair is turning gray. The background is yellowish behind me. I have to admit up front that I'm not a trends expert per se, but I would like to suggest a framework we might want to keep in mind when we talk about trends. And I will briefly share some thoughts concerning today's topic. If we go back to the standard definition of a trend, I feel today's discussion relates closely to change and perhaps in particular behavior change. Right? The definition I found was for a trend, a general development or change in a situation or in the way that people are behaving. Another definition is to start doing something that becomes accepted and that other people can copy. I work for a global nonprofit called Ashoka. We are the largest network of social entrepreneurs and change makers. So people who are passionate about fixing our broken systems in innovative ways. Caroline Casey, who will be speaking later today, is one of our amazing 4,000 fellows and change makers, and she's attempting to shift the inclusive employment system through her valuable 500 campaign. Our belief at Ashoka is that the new normal, and the recent pandemic is confirming this, will require everyone to be a change maker, will require everyone to have the agency and the capacity to achieve change at their level. This requires skills like empathy, leadership, resilience, collaboration. And as a matter of fact, our vision of everyone a change maker is something we learned from the change makers we support. Although they often start by providing direct services to their beneficiaries, they soon realize that they will never be able to address the scale of the issue they wish to solve by providing direct services on their own. They realize that more will be needed to change the system they are trying to change. And this includes replicating their work in other contexts with local partners, doing advocacy and influencing legislation, collaborating with others, building movements, and ultimately changing narratives, thinking patterns, and behaviors. All this often requires letting go to some extent of their own organizations and turning others into change makers, building self-efficacy and empowerment. Now, we will probably all agree that most of our systems today, educational systems, employment systems, etc., were designed by a generation that no longer lives or for a world that no longer exists. Hence, it is necessary that we all start from the roots and ask ourselves the questions of what are the beliefs, the norms, and the mental frameworks that sustain these unfair systems that we tolerate today? And what can we innovate to replace or revert these inefficiencies and these injustices? Well, campaigning and building trends can play a very important key role here. They can raise awareness, empower people to act, and enable this necessary mindset and behavior shift. Now, as I was reflecting on my talk last night, my 15-year-old son got interested. And because I believe we need to put the future generation at the heart of social change, I would simply like to share with you his perhaps naive thoughts on today's topic and on trends. As we started the conversation on trends and inclusion last night, he brought up the analogy with the LGBTQ movement, which I found interesting. He suggested that there were perhaps some elements that we could learn from the LGBT movement, and the fact that he was saying some of his classroom peers were openly talking about their sexual diversity, and it was respected and to some extent considered as cool, in his own words. He explained me that he personally first came across that movement by bumping into a hashtag LGBTQ in social media, which triggered his curiosity and pushed him to search for the explanation behind the abbreviation. He asked me if the inclusion and accessibility movement had a universal hashtag like LGBTQ, which could perhaps trigger people's curiosity to learn more. He then went on and told me he assimilated the LGBTQ movement with the rainbow symbol and asked me whether there was such a similar symbol for inclusion and accessibility. And then he went on sharing that he was also struck to see that social media influencers, actors, musicians, so people that very much influence teenagers today, were claiming their sexual diversity, and asked if there were sufficient role models with special abilities in social media or TV today. The conversation then shifted towards gay pride and how such events celebrating diversity in a fun and engaging way were also shifting his perceptions and the perceptions of his peers. And then he added that people with disabilities are probably the best examples of change makers, as they have to be resilient, creative, collaborative. He said it could be great to create a narrative around superpowers, the word he used, and integrate this narrative in a subtle way into online gaming or series, which, as we all know, are key reference channels for youth today. And then the conversation closed, I was asking him if he had a last tip concerning trends, and he mentioned, I found that interesting, that for him a trend is not so much about the initiator or the leader who finds the innovative concept, but much more about the early adopters and the first followers, which I found interesting also from a leadership perspective. Now, the good news is that there are already great symbols and movements in the field of inclusion. Disability prides, campaigns like the Purple Light Up, which lit up so many beautiful buildings here in Austria last week, or the new Trivate, which celebrates the lives and contributions of disabled people through disability art and culture. I will conclude simply by linking this to my daily work at Ashoka, where, as Michael said, I indeed help proven social innovations to replicate and transfer their model and their impact to new context with the support of local replication partners. And part of this work is actually related to trends, as we help them basically codify, simplify, and package, and then disseminate their model in ways that enable others to adapt and adopt them. And through our partnership with the Zero Project and many other partners like Access Israel, we support each year 10 inclusive innovations in their replication and transfer journey. 41 alumni have graduated so far, several of which have already replicated their model with partners. And I look very much forward to learning more today from the other speakers in the audience on how we could help these models become even more trendy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. And I recommend everyone, I think the exposure of the 10 innovations has already been exposed last week. And in February in Austria, we will see this Zero Project Conference, highly recommended to you all, and we will discuss and promote it even more in the future. So thank you very, very much. I would like to invite now Jessica Tesoriero, Deputy Cultural Attaché of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, our supporters and partners for many years for this international activity. Please, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Michal. Dear friends, I feel like I can say that because you said it first. My name is Jessica Tesoriero. I'm the Deputy Cultural Attaché of the United States in Israel. It is my pleasure and honor to help open this webinar. The U.S. Embassy has partnered with Access Israel for years, supporting their international convention, bringing prominent U.S. speakers to Israel, and sending Access Israel staff to the United States, thus sharing the American experience with the accessibility field and best practices with Access Israel's local and impressive international audience, I have to say. This year, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. which prohibited discrimination on the basis of disability in employment, in government, in public accommodations, and more. This law removed barriers for Americans with disabilities, ensuring they could be full participants in the life of their communities and our nation. Helping Americans with disabilities helped all Americans, as broader participation made businesses and society at large stronger and more successful. It set the tone and the trend for 3 decades of progress. We're proud of the progress that's been made toward increasing accessibility and inclusion for those with disabilities, but gaps and challenges remain, especially, as Michal said, in a post-COVID world. Room for improvement in technology, education, transportation, and more, setting trends to close those gaps, that's the focus of our continued efforts, including this convention. This year, our partners in Access Israel recruited more amazing speakers and a larger international audience than ever, increasing the impact of sharing knowledge and expertise and supercharging the search for creative solutions to the issues that people with disabilities face. The ADA changed how people look at accessibility and inclusion in many countries around the world, including Israel. We hope that this convention continues this trend and sets more, helping to bring about a future where, instead of just accommodated, people with disabilities are actively sought in workplaces and schools and governance because their lives and contributions are valuable. Inclusion makes us all stronger, from strength to strength, as Harriet said. Congratulations again to our partners in Access Israel, as well as the 4 American speakers and all of the international experts and audience members joining today from all corners of the world. Thank you so much for your commitment to this topic and for your creative and strategic thinking about it. The US Embassy is proud to be a sponsor of this important event. I wish you all a meaningful session today, which hopefully will create a positive impact on your communities and your futures. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you to all our opening speakers. The idea is that you need friendships and partnerships and connections, and we have all that with you and the rest of our amazing community. This will help us take it up a notch and take it to the next level to enhance the impact of on a global level. So thanks a lot. And we will jump immediately to our first speaker. And I am very excited. We were really aiming at having you here, Greg. I'm inviting Greg Nugent. He was formerly a director of brand marketing and culture at the London 2012 Olympics and Paralympics. And he was a non-executive director of the British Paralympic Association. He's the co-founder of HTYT Films, whose debut film, Rising Phoenix, a landmark feature documentary on the Paralympic Games, was released globally on Netflix in August 2020. He aims to use the film to change the way the world thinks about human potential. Greg, please.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for everybody today for giving us the chance to talk. As you will have heard, I'm ultimately the creator of a thing called HTYT Films, and the start of that was Rising Phoenix, which is an idea that I had in 2010 when I started to learn about the power of sport and its particular power of transforming attitudes in the realm of disability. Today, I've been asked to talk about trends and forecasts, but also I felt that it would be hopefully useful for you to listen to where I think I started on this journey and where we want to go next and where this whole subject goes next. Before I do that, I'm in London right now. It's 2:45 in the afternoon. It's cold. And I'm a 5'10". I'm white. I'm quite pale at the moment. I have messy brown hair and I've got a blue zip-up jacket on and I'm wearing glasses. And thank you again for the chance to talk today. I must say it is an incredible honor to hear the caliber of people talking and also to know who you've got else coming today. We're very humbled to be part of this today. You're an incredible group of people, leaders and pioneers who I think are changing the way that we think about this important subject for so many people. In my thinking ahead of today, I wanted to just really tell you a very simple story, my story on the inside of this subject matter now, not just about Rising Phoenix, but where I started, what I learned when I started, and if you like, where we are now and where we want to go next. And so I must be honest, and I think this is important actually, that until 2008, I'd been in a lot of very relatively senior jobs in very relatively important areas, but I'd never really had much time to think through, as part of my job, what I do as a creative marketing person around the area of disability. It was only when I joined London 2012 that I had to learn this quick. And way back then on London 2012 is I deemed it would become my PhD. I felt I had to learn about this quickly because of the incredible importance of the Paralympic Games in London. So when I arrived at 2012, it was very simple. There was the Olympics and the Paralympics. And with the Olympics, we had a book. You were almost given a book. There you go. That's how you do the Olympics. And there was some room for creativity and some room for original thinking, but it was not. But it was a formula, and it was hard work. But it was a formula. But the Paralympics, there was actually no book. There was no playbook. There was no, this is how you do it. And that's crudely because until I think China and London, and then of course we all know what nearly happened in Brazil, but we know what's about to happen in Tokyo. The Paralympics weren't treated in the same way that the Olympics were. And so as a marketing person, as a creative person who really believes in creativity to change things, I saw this as a brilliant opportunity to build the Paralympics in London as a challenger brand opportunity. So rather than follow the Olympics and copy their ideas, we would do our own thing. And crudely, we did some really important research with a psychologist who said to us that attitudes in the UK to disability are really, really terrible. And there will never be another opportunity bigger than the London Paralympics to change the UK's thinking. And so if you don't get this right, then the country will never really move its mind. So as part of that, I had to learn this. There was no book, but we did a lot of work on semiotics and the way that disability and image work. And we did a lot of work on why some of the photography around disability was actually hindering its progress. We did an awful lot of work around mental issues, around acceptance and denial, and why people felt uneasy about talking about disability. And I'll never personally forget a focus group in 2010 when we were trying to work out what it was that would get the UK to love the Paralympics and therefore in our minds change their minds about disability. I never forget a member of the focus group telling me to my face that nobody would ever want to watch disabled sport because it wasn't sport. And that drove me and the entire London 2012 team to treat the Paralympics and the image of the Paralympians as a challenger, not following the formula, but actually building something that was different. And the most famous decision we ever made there was the decision to hire Channel 4 to do the broadcasting of the Paralympics rather than the BBC. I don't think anybody's ever sacked the BBC before, but we asked them not to do the Paralympics. And instead we asked Channel 4, and we did that because they had a creative spark to them and a rebelliousness that we felt we needed to take into the Paralympics. And they wanted to talk more about the challenger nature of the Paralympics and why it was actually better than the Olympics. And Channel 4 went on to become, I think their advert, was something that won every award in the world. Outside of that, we also worked with CEOs across the country, leaders in business, schools, families across the country. And thankfully, as a result of the 2012 Games in London and the UK, our attitudes to disability have changed as much as any country in the world, and they've showed no signs of regressing. So after the wonderful nature of the working on the Paralympics, I was lucky, as you say, to be able to become a board member of the British Paralympic Association. And that gave me an insight more on the ground of how hard it was actually to raise money in this space and to be brave creatively, but actually to put a team on a plane so they could go and compete. And so I loved my time at the BPA, but it was during that time that I found out that the Rio Paralympics were potentially going to be cancelled. And the reason they were going to be cancelled is because in Brazil, people had decided that the Paralympics weren't as important as the Olympics. And for those of you that have seen the film, and I won't have time to show the trailer today, but I'll post it in the comments in case you haven't seen it. That there was a moment where Rio actually were not going to stage the games, and I felt that having had the original idea to make the documentary on the history of the Paralympics, I felt it was then my duty, because I think what a film can do is it's 106 minutes and everyone in the world can watch it, and it can be translated and formatted, but also because of the revolution in the way we watch films now, they're on our phones, they're in our living rooms. I felt a film better than a book, better than anything. I felt a film could make sure that the Rio thing never happened again. And so we started a thing called the Phoenix Project. And the Phoenix Project is a 10-year project that we are mobilized around, which is fundamentally over the next 10 years, all the way through to LA in 2028. Our goal is to try and make the Paralympics as big as it can possibly be. And you never know, one day, I think, rival the Olympics. And so Rising Phoenix, which I hope many of you have seen, that was our first act. It was not the whole thing. It was the first thing that we wanted to do, to say to the world that we want to build a completely different form of creative conversation around the way we portray disability. And for those of you that have seen it, I hope that you will see a rich, beautiful film, fantastically shot by incredible directors and incredible producers, with Tatiana McFadden as a producer and Peter and Ian, our directors, John Batsek as a producer, an incredible team of people who made it happen. But the truth is, making it happen was too hard. And this is what we have to change. Is I'll never forget taking my idea to people that I trusted, people that have good ideas. And all of them were telling me, Greg, your career is, it's a good one. Don't make this film because it won't work. People don't want to watch films about disabled people. Obviously, I thought they were wrong. But when it then came to me trying to raise the funds to make it happen, I quickly found out that people didn't want to take the kind of risks that I wanted us to take. So I had to find a different way of raising the money to make the film. Thankfully, visionaries backed me to make it, and we're changing history as a result of it. Also, when we were making the film, we wanted it to be a production that was accessible to as many people as possible. So the accessibility statements that we've got around the film are really incredible. And the truth is, more than that, we also had a minimum of 16% of people that worked on the film actually had a disability, which we're pretty convinced is the biggest we can find for any film in the world. And the reaction to the film really has been incredible. And we've had letters from every corner of the world. Twitter told us that at one point there'd been about 500 million people in conversation, and the reach of the campaign on Twitter was, huge. What I'm really proud about, thanks to my incredible team, is the movement backed it 100%. We have not had a complaint about the film from anywhere. They feel that we portrayed the movement and the protagonists of the movement in the way that we should. I've had incredible reactions from fellow creators, producers, and directors who feel this is the way that we should be making film and content for people about these stories. And more than that, we've actually last week launched an educational guide to teach the lessons of the film, so that every school in the world can actually learn from this film. And we've made that film available to any school in the world that wants to watch it. What do I think the lesson for me of the film and my journey, what do I think that lesson means for how you're beginning to think about these trends and how we really disrupt the conventions in this marketplace? I would say the biggest lesson is that it can be done. The dream that we're dreaming about, the change that we all aspire to. It can be done. What I found is that what the industry wanted me to do was take the risk. They didn't want to take the risk. They want to have great films. And so luckily we managed to meet people that help us do that. And what that means is we've now built a platform, and that platform is where I think we're most focused about going next. So instead of Act 1 being the beginning and the end of our story, we're actually, and you're the first people in the world we've told this, but we're filming an incredible program now, which is the story through lockdown all the way through to the Tokyo Paralympics next year. That is a really incredible story. And the people that we've been lucky enough to follow for the last nearly a year now, it's a really raw story, and it's much closer to some of the issues that you've talked about before my chance to talk today. And actually what I think we're getting into is what it's, the family and the network and the issues, but the everydayness of somebody with a disability and the challenges they face and why things have to change. And after Tokyo, we're going to go to Paris, which they say is the most beautiful city in the world, but it's not the most accessible. And we want to use our ideas and our creativity to challenge the physical legacy of Paris so that it can be a city that is transformed by the Paralympics. But then ultimately, the biggest prize of them all, I believe, is the Paralympics vision, the IPC's vision for the Games in Los Angeles in 2028, which is probably the biggest opportunity in the world for attitudinal shift. And we want to document that story, tell that story, listen to those characters, hear about the things that need to change, and package that story over a decade so that over that time we can move minds, get more and more people to engage with the Paralympics, because we know that when people do that, their minds change. Just a couple of bits from me now before I close. I'll put the link to our teaser and trailer on there for you, and if you would like that. But don't forget what we learned in the UK. Our research said that attitudes to disability needed to change, and there was nothing more powerful than the second biggest event in the world, the Paralympics, to change them. We know more than ever now, having gone through this and launched this in every country in the world, we know that there are too many countries where disabilities are not part of the way that popular culture works. And we want to change that. And we know you do too. We believe this is the decade to do that, as the story, a potential for the story have moved, whereby in the old days you could only broadcast on certain channel at a certain time. Now we can broadcast to everybody at any time. And so whilst other movements have flourished, there's a chance now, as your previous speaker said, to learn from those other movements and to actually build a challenger mentality to the entire conversation around disability. And that's obviously got huge impacts for advertisers and image makers. But I believe that the most powerful place for that is television, because we know that television changes minds. And we know that if people see something on television, they're more likely to change than anything. Harder Than You Think, HTYT stands for Harder Than You Think. We want our company to be a company that takes a stand on matters where other people have been put off. If that means taking the risk, then we are happy to take that risk because we think it's worth it. And we really do believe in your mission. The world will learn this story over the next 10 years, and change will come as a result of it. And we just want to say thank you again for allowing us to share our story and what I've learned over the last decade or so. It's a real honor and a privilege to be able to communicate with you and to listen to you today. And if you like what we're doing, then please get in touch. My email is greg@htyt.co.uk. That's greg@htyt.co.uk, because sometimes leadership is a lonely place and we really want to meet as many of you as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Truly inspiring. And I think when you see the chat, you'll see all the excitement while you were speaking. Before I introduce our next speakers, I have to respond to some of the things that were raised in the chat. There are amazing people here that are not speakers, but are still amazing and doing amazing things. And I'm loving the chat that is going on about sharing. This is what this is all about. We have created the platform. Sharon will upload now the website again, the global website. This is only for this webinar, for these series of webinars. Put your contacts there, put the emails, put links to the videos, put, you know, Jennifer, what you were talking about. I have no doubt many here would love to hear and read about it. So put it on the website. When we send out to all we have more than 2,000 people who are active in this community. They will all want to receive it, want to go in, want to learn more and connect directly with you. This is the whole idea. We have here David Dyer, Lawson, and Tonya, who asked how to share and encourage. This is what this is all about, and we'll be more than happy. You can see information about speakers, information about participants, everything in that website. Log in, add yours. I'm sure you have a lot to share about also. So thank you very much again, Greg. And I love the abbreviation of HTYT. Love that. So thank you very much. And now, I'm very happy to move to our next thing on the agenda. I'm happy to invite Shira Ruderman. She is the president of the Ruderman Family Foundation, and she is going to be coupled with Yuval Wagner. Yuval is the chairman of Access Israel. Shira is a professional philanthropist and social activist. She serves as the executive director of the Ruderman Family Foundation, a private family foundation that invests in 3 primary areas of focus: advocating for and advancing the inclusion of people with disabilities throughout our society, strengthening relationship between Israel and the American Jewish community, and modeling the practice of strategic philanthropy worldwide. Now, the foundation's objectives are achieved through entrepreneurship, program leadership, and philanthropy. Shira is married to Jay Ruderman, the president of the Ruderman Family Foundation, and she's coming to us from Boston. And she definitely is a great example of a foundation that has created amazing ripple effects in Israel and abroad, raising awareness, promoting open discussions, and putting it on the table, the subject that we are all here for. Yuval Wagner, my boss. Let's go for it.
Hi. It's great to interview Shira. I'm excited. Can you pin both of us to the screen, because I see Harriet. Anyway, Shira.
Yuval, you have to pin yourself. Everybody pins their own.
Okay. Anyway, Shira, welcome aboard. Great to have you. And my first question to you is the Ruderman Family Foundation. Why did you choose to deal with the issue of people with disabilities?
First, I want to say that I'm truly honored to be here with you all. I'm listening and I'm emotional and inspired by the work that you and Michal and everyone else here doing for the last 20 years. The Ruderman Family Foundation, we started our investment in the area of disability inclusion about 18 years ago from a simple point of view of social justice. We were approached to start a partnership about local Jewish day schools, and the World Excellency was presented as part of the initiative and said, how do we do our schools excellent as other best practices? And we learned very quickly that 18 years ago, excellent did not include everyone and every challenge. It included just those that have access and maybe support to reach their potential. And this is how we started our journey in local Jewish day schools. We expanded to Massachusetts, to the entire Jewish community, to the state of Israel. And in the last 10 years, we do international advocacy and international work.
Great. Yeah, I forgot to say to those who have a vision disability that I'm sitting on a wheelchair. I'm a bald, 55 years old guy with probably a little round face and wearing a gray shirt. And I'm sitting in my office in Hod HaSharon, Israel. Shira, would like to say how beautiful you are?
Of course. I don't know if I can say how beautiful I am, but I'll describe that I'm a woman, female, I don't know, white is the first time I probably used it, because in Israel as a Sephardic Jew, no one ever called me white. But I am in this ethnicity here. I have a curly long black hair, wearing earrings, black shirt, sitting in my dining room in Boston, and happy to be here with you all.
Great. So in your work, in your foundation work, when was the time you understood, and what's your thinking of the importance of the issue of awareness in promoting your work on people with disabilities?
So about, I would say about 8 to 10 years ago, we understood that as much as we all invest in starting programs, changing policies, investing tremendous amount of time and money by creating a change through, you know, organizations, through government, and yet the impact was not out there. We didn't feel like, you know, all of this tremendous work that we all do and many more that are doing does not feel like, you know, is on the ground as much as it should be. And we watched, you know, the world of politics, and we said, how is the story being told? And Jay is my husband, but also the president of the foundation, came from the political background, and it was his idea to say that we have to advocate in a different way than we're advocating in the nonprofit world. We have to look at that as a social agenda and use the greatest platforms to make it understood to them and bring it to, you know, as we can to people's, you know, in front of people's face. And what are the ways? Greg said it before: media, TV, films, screen. You know, we can all do tremendous work by changing policies and budgets and starting initiatives. And in the end, the power is where people can access it easily and see it as normative as possible, real and authentic. And this is how we started our raising awareness mode in the foundation. I do want to say that raising awareness is not one action, and it's not a single action, meaning one white paper or one campaign or one survey, one report, one movie, one TV show is not enough. We need a critical mass in order to create the change. And all of us together, by bringing it to a critical mass, I think starting to feel the change. So what we did at the foundation, we started by actually doing two things. One that was not popular at all. We did rapid response, meaning that we watched everything that comes out of Hollywood, any new movie, any new TV show, and check to see, is it authentic or not? And I want to share with you a few data points that I think will help us to understand. We did a research, we checked that. It was like first research that were done on TV and film. 2016, we checked how many actors without disability got Oscars or any awards for their acting. And I want you to know that we're talking about 30 years of Oscar, you know, more than 50% of the actors, male actors that received Oscar got it for playing a person with disability. So we took this information and said, how is it possible? There are no people with disability that can play any good, you know, role. And we started to understand how can we address it. So we started to convert, you know, to approach the studios, and we, you know, Greg, you said that before. You think people open the door and say, hey, welcome, this is great. They're like, are you guys crazy? What do you want? This is art. Don't tell us what to do. It's not acceptable. We know how, you know, movies should look like. And all we try to say is that diversity on the screen and authenticity on the screen should be fair for all minorities, all sectors, all groups of society. And it was a long conversation. Today, when I said today, in 2019, we took their research and checked it to compare. And I want to tell you, if in 2016, okay, 5% of the most 10 popular TV shows were authentic representation of people with disability, today, when I said today, the last paper was 2019, 22% of the 284 TV shows that we checked are authentic representation of people with disability. So we can see the change and the trend, you know, of when people are more aware, they are more opportunities and they understand the barriers, so we can see a change. Yuval, you're on mute.
Thank you. So when you chose, did you choose specifically Hollywood or the all area of entertainment, which means also TV shows, you know, other culture venues, or the focus is only on movies, Hollywood movies?
So I'll tell you a few things. First of all, we do a few things. Number one, we write white papers and research. So we can back up our feelings, we can back up our wishes, we can back up the trends, okay? So there are white papers and surveys that constantly check what is being done in the entertainment world, how many TV shows, how many movies, number one. Number two, we have partnerships on the ground. It's not enough just to speak about something, you need to work with people. You need to have allies, you need to have friends that believe in it. So what we do, we have a partnership with the Academy Award of interns, and 10% of the interns are people with disabilities that can be exposed to the entertainment world. We have a scholarship at Yale Drama School, so this is the pipeline of the actors. We had a partnership with Sundance. I just going to give an example of the opening movie in Sundance Festival last February in Utah was Creep Camp, which was the first movie on disability being at least presented at Sundance. So we did this partnership intentionally to start bringing this conversation to the right rooms. We're holding panels and conversations with the studio. We have an open letter to the actress, meaning that we went to the actress and said, join us in believing that Hollywood needs to be authentic when it comes to people with disability too. And I can say, you know, proudly that we have many actors like George Clooney and Eva Longoria and many others that join the open letter to say we believe in authentic representation of people with disability. We did a PSA, which is a call to action with Octavia Spencer. We understood that it has to be multiple actions, okay, and awareness alongside with programs, data alongside with showing the change and making people understand that this change is possible. Another great example that I can bring to say that, you know, we could not do it alone, but we have to have conversations with the different professionals in the entertainment world. So we have a partnership with the guilds, the producer guilds, the director guilds, the writer guilds, the actor guilds, because it has to be ongoing conversation. We ask the studios to you know, just to make a statement by signing a pledge that says, we will cast. That's it. We're not asking more. It's like, you know, we want a fair shot. We will cast people with disability. And I would, you know, happily say that some of the major studios either signed or in conversations with us to sign. So it's a long process. There's no one action that could make this happen.
Shiran, is there any research or numbers on the effect? Let's say one movie, it will be with authentic player, actor, or without authentic player. Does it affect the amount of viewers, the amount of positive reacts, the amount of awareness effect?
So I don't have the research on one movie, but we did do the only research so far that was done, we call it the market research, to show what will be the value if the entertainment, and this is actually one of the key elements that, you know, helped us to proceed with the conversation, to show the entertainment world that if they view it from a financial value of making it authentic and diverse and, as we say, normative to all, they will gain out of it. So the market research that we conducted in 2019 shows that spending power is estimated in almost $125 billion per year in potential revenue for networks and streaming services. And I think the change that we see on TV, like, you know, we give a seal of approval. We watch this year 284 TV shows in order to see if it's authentic. And the recent seal of approval last month went to, you know, Grey's Anatomy and some other very key TV series. I think that the TV streaming companies understand the power of it. People watch, people engage, people consume it. They like the authentic stories and the good art and acting on the screen. And I think it's proving that being authentic is worth it.
Amazing. We have one last minute, and I would like, you know, this webinar is all about global sharing, and we have so many participants from all over the world listening to us in this interview. Do you have any suggestions to the participants from all over the world on something that they can do locally, you know, in all countries, from your experience, you know, globalizing your amazing project?
One advice, it's hard, but I'll try, okay? I will say, first of all, to join forces is worth it. And I think that we in the disability world need to do more of joint forces. We are reducing our power by working in a sole actions, okay? So number one. Number two, telling the story counts. But the telling the story needs to be in a way that is not just authentic or a beautiful story, that it gets to a wide audience. So it's being in front of those that make decisions. What next we're gonna watch on our screen? What else we're gonna listen to in our radio? What else is gonna be on, you know, I don't know, one of the streaming. And number three, I do think that the screen, the entertainment, if we like it or not, I'm not saying I love everything. I have 4 kids and it's sometimes challenging to have everything available, but it works because I think that today there is so much need of consuming content. So the content that we want to see has to be representative of our society and having people with disability as part of not just the content and the production, but also the actors, the producers. I'm sure some of you heard of the movie Peanut Butter Falcon. And I think it made its noise by having, through the partnership we had with the Academy, which took, you know, long conversations for a year, to ask them also to allow a person, an actor with disability, to present the award to another actor. Because once you see it in real time, you feel like it's worth it. You feel like we're all equal. We all have opportunities. So I think you can all take it to your own countries, to your own local communities, on a small screen or big screen. The impact of it will be seen. And I think in 10 years, as Greg and others said, we maybe won't need to speak about authentic representation of people with disability in this way.
Thank you very much. It was great to have you. The foundation is doing great work. We're looking forward for more and more work from you guys affecting our world. And I will say 2 words that will probably conclude this 3 words: awareness, authentic, and impact. Thank you very much, Shira, and hopefully to see you in Israel soon.
Honor and pleasure.
Thank you very much, Yuval. Definitely inspiring. And now, because I want to catch up on the little delay we have due to technical problems, I am moving immediately to our power panel. This panel will focus on commercials, ads, on accessibility with impact. And it is being led by our amazing partner and friend and returning expert speaker, Deborah Rue, the CEO and founder of the Rue Global Impact USA. And on the panel, we have Thomas Waladokovsky, sorry if I'm mispronouncing. He's the Vice President and Accessibility and Multicultural Technology and Product at Comcast USA. We have Amit Mashiach, an expert on strategy and marketing and CEO of McCann Israel. And we have Aubrey Lee, brand manager at Google USA and a public speaker on disability and inclusion. Deborah, I'll let you do the rest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mikkel. And a compliment to Shira Ruderman and Jay Ruderman. It shows what we can accomplish when we all come together. And they were looking at it from all the different stakeholder positions. So really, really appreciate the work you've done. And that's how we change the world. So thank you. And thank you, continued thanks to Access Israel for all the global leadership that you're showing. We're very proud to be joining here from the United States. Aubrey, I don't know, I can't see everybody's screen. So hopefully Aubrey's on now, Tom Wodolski, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. Amit Mashiach. Oh, good. So, so welcome to the panel, and let's go ahead and begin. And because we do, I want to make sure that we keep the, we stay on time. I'm going to ask questions, but in case, I assume everybody's familiar with who Google is, but I want to make sure that we do just speak for a second about Comcast, because even though Comcast is a very, very well-known company in the United States, I don't know if everyone knows who Comcast is. And then also I want Amit to talk just for a minute about McCann in Israel, just so that we know the companies. So Tom, do you want to just spend a couple of, just maybe 2 minutes on Comcast, and then we'll turn it over to Amit, and maybe he can just give us a quick update. Once again, I'm assuming, yeah, as Christopher Wood said, nobody ever heard of Google. So, so Thomas, you've got the floor.
Sure, thanks, Deborah. Hello, everybody. It's great to be part of this Access Israel panel. What an incredible lineup you've assembled here today and throughout the webinars. I'm very excited to be here and to share. So Comcast is a global media and technology company, one of the largest global media technology companies. And we are home to Comcast, or Xfinity, which is our distribution, cable distribution arm. NBC Universal, certainly that's the television broadcast network. Universal Movie Studios, many cable networks, Universal theme parks all over the world, and other companies that are part of the NBC Universal side. And then more recently, Sky, which is in Europe, UK, Sky Italia, and other countries as well. And so the company's been around since 1963. I can't do math that fast, so 57 years. I run our accessibility group, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's both content producer and distributor across the globe.
Thank you, Tom. Amit?
So hi, thank you for having me. McCann is a global advertising agency. McCann Israel is the local agency in Israel, and it's the largest advertising agency and advertising media buying company in the country. We work with many local as well as global brands, including Unilever, Nestle, L'Oreal, IKEA, and many more.
Thank you, Amit. And before we start the questions, I am going to say that I'm an author, and I wrote the book. I've written 3 books, but I wrote Inclusion Branding. And the reason why I wrote Inclusion Branding was I wanted we work a lot with corporations, global corporations, and we wanted them to understand that societal's expectations of them had changed, and society expects many things from our corporations, including including a diverse workforce, being sustainable, taking care of our planet, and many other social impact things. And so when I wrote my book, Inclusion Branding, I wrote it from the lens of you can really focus on a lot of different ways to make the world a better place. I personally think including people with disabilities is a win, including people with disabilities like my daughter born with Down syndrome, including people with disabilities like my husband who has aged into a disability. So I really love this topic. It's one of my favorites. So let's start with Audrey Lee from Google. And Audrey, let me ask you the first question. Why do you think it's important for corporate brands to highlight their disability inclusion and accessibility efforts in commercials and media?
Thank you, Deborah. Hi, hope you all can hear me.
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I think I'll start just a bit by giving a little bit of information about myself. I will start with a visual description. So I am a Chinese American woman. I have long black hair, wearing a black blouse. And in the background, I have a drawing of some string instruments that I actually drew with charcoal many years ago. And then we had the morning sunrise light coming in through the window. So it is bright and early here, and I'm so excited to be here. Some more information about me. I have a form of muscular dystrophy, and so I am mobility impaired and hearing impaired and a bit speech impaired. So I feel that it's 3 disabilities for the price of 1. And I love what you were saying, Deborah, and what Christopher was talking about, how Google, oh, no one's ever heard of Google. It reminds me of a time when I was going to join Google in marketing, I told a classmate of mine, he said, marketing? What does Google have to market? Everyone already knows them. But to answer your question, why is it important that we have disability in marketing? Well, I think it's because there is a mismatch between the lives of disabled people and the way that those lives are portrayed on screen and in stories. So the stories that we see in movies and everything we talk about do not reflect our lives, and therefore they do not validate our lives. In disability, sometimes people say special needs, but one thing that I say is belonging is not a special need. We all feel a need to belong. And when I have never seen someone like me in Hollywood movies, it makes me feel that people like me don't have a place in this world. So why is it important? It is to validate the lives of disabled people, to make us feel that we belong. And what I loved how Glenn talked about earlier are dreams. And let's keep dreaming. The dreams that we dream are possible. And when we expand and improve what disability representation is in marketing, we also expand our dreams. We make our dreams bigger.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. I wanted to make sure that you were finished. Good job. Thank you. And thank you so much for the explanations. Tom, let me go to you next. Tom, can you tell us about your corporate story of disability inclusion and accessibility? I know from my mother, who has passed over, but my mother became legally blind and had severe disabilities at the end of her life. And she loved Comcast and that talking remote that y'all put together. So I know you've done a lot more than that, but the customers have been awful pleased with what you're doing.
Great, thanks. So just for the description purposes, I don't have hair, unlike Aubrey. Wearing a sweater vest and a background of a lighthouse in Maine is hopefully what is in view. There's a painting behind me over my right shoulder. So in answer to your question, Deborah, Comcast has been working on accessibility since June of 2012, when I was fortunate to be tapped to start our program. And we really believe that accessibility is an engine of innovation. That if you build a product that is inclusive, you end up building a better product overall. And I know that it's starting to resonate, because yesterday, unprompted, heard from an employee who said, would you come to this presentation that we're going to do tomorrow? Because we started to really focus on accessibility, and we discovered along the way that what you said is really true, that we made a better product because we focused on making a media player more inclusive. So it's always great when those types of messages come back at you from other places within the company, unprompted and for no reason other than people wanting to share it. So as I said, we've been around since June of 2012, at least from the accessibility perspective. And really we have three fundamental pillars. We focus on customer engagement, product capabilities, and then this third large bucket that we call infrastructure. And when we talk about customer engagement, we really want to engage customers in a variety of ways. Showing up at events like this and sharing with our colleagues and friends in the disability community and beyond is certainly one way. Bringing customers into our design and development process through customer roundtables, through focus groups, usability testing, any number of ways that we engage with customers on that front, putting prototypes in front of people and getting their feedback on things like our voice remote or our talking guide for people who are blind or visually impaired. And then certainly how we include accessibility in the brand, and we'll talk more about that. But that's a really important piece, and we've gotten some good examples there. On the product capability side, it's really all about adding enhancements to our products and services, as well as making sure that the basic product and service itself is usable by people with disabilities. So for example, 2 weeks ago, the American Thanksgiving holiday, NBC, for the first time in the history of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is a huge tradition here in America, was made available with live audio description for people who are blind or visually impaired. Literally had a describer, narrating visual descriptions of balloons and floats and such. So there's an example. I talked about voice guidance, which is our talking guide that enables people who are blind or visually impaired to navigate set-top box experiences. And we can go further than mobile apps, et cetera. Then the infrastructure side, it's really about training, tools, best practices, making sure that we're not asking our product and development teams to reinvent the wheel. We're doing a lot of that work, giving them best practices, letting them know how to build mobile apps, et cetera, and moving forward from there. But it goes beyond that. Certainly there's community impact and partnering with disability organizations. I mentioned the commercials that we've done. NBC has done more Paralympics broadcast coverage, over the years, increasing amount. We have the rights of the Olympics and Paralympics through 2032. So there's lots of different ways that from a corporation, we see it. Accessibility is one of our 6 core values alongside diversity and inclusion, military and veterans affairs, sustainability, community impact, and diversity and inclusion. And so it really does permeate and cut across the entire ecosystem of Comcast.
Thank you, Tom. I've always been very impressed with what Comcast is doing. So thank you for joining and telling us about it. Amit, I'm going to ask you a question that we already agreed on, but I'm also going to get you, since you do this for a living, I'm going to also, if you don't mind, get you to answer another question if you want to. If you don't want to, I'll answer it. So one of our participants, Rilam Fahim, excuse me if I said that incorrect. Why does marketing always have to have a catch? Why can't it be the right thing to do? Why do we have to go back to the old system of what's in it for me? Which, by the way, I thought was an excellent question. And so, Amit, I don't know if you wanted to take it. And I also wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about, how your customers, how are you helping your customers really tell their stories about accessibility and disability inclusion? So I threw you under the bus just then, Amit. So if you don't want to take that question, I can take it after you. But I can tell you're good-natured. So.
All right, I'll do my best. You feel free to help me. Go ahead and help me if you think I need some help. But well, marketing has to have a catch because good marketing needs to stand out. There's lots of commotion out there. There are lots of messages. Every consumer has plenty of different choices, and you just need to stand out if you wanna do good marketing. So that's basically the answer. I think the way to get clients to work at inclusion is from the business end. Inclusion is good for business. And I think that's the best way to explain it, and that's where the best ideas come from. The reason I'm here is probably a project that we did along with Accessibility Israel. It's called IKEA Disables. I don't know if you're all familiar with it, but in Israel, people who live with disabilities, consisting about 10% of the population. And IKEA never had products for those 10% of the population. And we came up with an idea that led into a big project, which partly was about developing new products for people with disabilities. And the other part was creating add-ons, developing add-ons to their products, to IKEA's products. And what came out of it is a 30% increase in sales at a period of time that consisted of 6 months. And that was huge for IKEA. And it came because we finally had products for a population that never had real sufficient solutions. So I think first and foremost, inclusion is good for business. And by the way, the reason we were able to come up with that idea is because we have a copywriter working in our firm who lives with cerebral palsy. And we were thinking about different ideas, and he had this very simple insight. He said, listen, we have IKEA couches in my room, and I'm not able to sit on them and get up without help. So if IKEA could just manufacture a simple add-on that adds 5 centimeters to the couch, that would help me immensely. And that's how this project came to life. So as an advertising company, if we don't have different people who come from different backgrounds, we're not able to provide ideas that answer needs for the entire population. So I guess that's my answer.
And that's a very good answer too. And you know, it is interesting because I always was focusing on the business case. And I had a friend of mine in Australia say, well, you Americans, which we get that comment a lot. You Americans, you're always focused on suing each other and compliance and litigation. And we do want to tell the stories from the marketing, but we're complicated in the United States, but at the same time, we're fighting for rights. And so even though it's complicated, you know, I still think it's the right thing to do. And I often admit that if a corporation isn't telling us through their marketing and their media and their social media, what they're doing to include us, you know, then you're missing a huge opportunity. So let me go back to Aubrey. And Aubrey, I know that you have, there's a commercial that you brought with Google, but let me also ask you a question. You know, I know that Google has done a bunch of commercials. So has Comcast. Amit, I know that you can talk about what you're doing for your clients, but tell us a little bit more about how Google is using commercials, blogs, movies, socialization, to tell the stories about disability inclusion and accessibility. And I know that Google's committed to our community because they are employing people with disabilities proudly, and they also are supporting people with disabilities in a lot of other ways, including hackathons and things like that. So let me give the floor back to you, Aubrey, to talk about Google, and maybe you can share your screen after your comments and show us the commercial that you brought as well.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Yeah, so how is Google using media to highlight these stories? We have done a few different video spots over the years for different events and to highlight how technology helps disabled people and how disabled people also develop technology. So as Thomas was saying, disability inclusion is an engine for innovation. And it's not just disabled people having things built for them. But disabled people also are the ones who build the technology. So I will also say that in marketing, our efforts are not only external, but also internal. So it starts from the inside of the company, I think. In order to have very good representation and storytelling externally, you need to have people inside the company who really get it. And so we have done internal videos and internal campaigns to highlight disabled employees. With that, I will attempt to share my screen. We will see how this goes. And in case it doesn't go well, I will also put this link in the chat for anyone's reference. Let me see if I can share this. And this is a thought from 5 years ago. And this year, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the ADA. And I really like this spot that we're doing from the 25th anniversary. I'll just play part of it because it's a bit long. Let me know, can you see my screen all right now?
Yes.
All right, great,
yes.
thank you.
Growing up, we would talk about the American dream and work hard, study hard, and you could move forward. But if you had a disability, working hard and study hard, you didn't really need to get anything.
I went and applied for a daycare job to be a teacher's assistant. The teachers liked me, and then they found out that I had been in special ed, and all of a sudden the job was no longer available.
My older brother became deaf at a young age. I think he was maybe 6 years old. His life was circumscribed by people saying, well, you're deaf, or you can't do this, you can't do that. They told him he could be one of 3 things. He could be a baker, a shoe cobbler, or a printer's assistant. He said, I don't want to be any of that. They said, okay, now you're a baker.
Ed just had a way of inspiring people to be what they needed to be. But he was a scared kid going off to college. It was just this terrifying idea. They're all going to look at me. And then he realized they could look at him and he could be a star. Of course, it opened the doors to people who had kids with disabilities.
I wanted to be a teacher. My written, oral, and medical exam all were given in inaccessible buildings. And my friends carried me up and down the steps. And then I was failed on my medical exam because I couldn't walk. And I really couldn't let it drop. Friends of mine and I decided that what we would do is we would set up this group.
I got a flyer in Braille, which I'd never received before. It said something like, fight for your civil rights.
That was really the beginning of advocacy.
I never knew that there was such thing as, you know, being proud of being a disabled person.
It was everybody really beginning to demand respect and the right to be able to do with their life what other people do and don't have to think about.
Thank you so much, Aubrey.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just really quickly tell you what I like about that video. It's focusing on highlighting the stories, the authentic stories of disabled people, letting them speak for themselves, not having a parent speak for them, and emphasizing pride, being proud of one's identity as a disabled person. So thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Amit, I know that you had mentioned the commercial with that you had done, and I believe Sharon has it ready to show, the one from IKEA. So I'm just going to let Sharon show that commercial.
We are putting it on right now.
Thank you.
We don't hear the sound.
I know, 1 second, we're re-putting it.
Maybe.
Michal, when you share, you have to put share with sound. You have to go out and then do share with sound.
We know, guys, part of doing a webinar like this is
Hi, I'm Eldar, 32 years old. Although I have cerebral palsy, I do everything I can to conduct myself like everyone else. But in my own home, of all places, I'm surrounded with furniture crying out, cripple. I'd like to sit on a regular sofa without being afraid I won't be able to get up. A closet. A regular lamp.
1 in every 10 people in Israel is a disabled person. The IKEA design vision gave birth to the Disables Project. Smart hacks making IKEA's best-selling items accessible. The project was created in collaboration with 2 NGOs, Milbot and Access Israel, and started off in the IKEA store with a hackathon of product engineers and disabled people that enabled better understanding of their needs. In the end of the developing process, 13 new products were born, each solving a different accessibility issue, such as sofa elevating legs for easier ascending, lamp button enlargement, special handles for PAX closets, and more. The new products are presented in the world's first accessible living spaces in the IKEA stores. The new models are available for download from the project's website, disables.com, and 3D printing anywhere in the world. So that Eldar, Dina, Pavel, Inbal, Moshe, Tahel, and Liel can also feel comfortable in their own homes like everybody else.
Now they should come up with products that assemble themselves.
Wow, what a fun commercial. I love how they were all sitting on the couch together at the beginning. That's very cool. And we do not have the license to show a video that Comcast did, but I'm hoping that Tom.
I do have another one.
Great, we do. Okay, cool. All right, good. And I also do want to do a shout out. I know Dr. Caroline Casey, who we all love, is going to speak later, but the Divertious commercial that they did won a Cannes Award. So bravo to them. Sets us up. So you've got the floor, Tom.
All right. So you know, there's commercials, and then there's other ways that we work. And this is a social media video that I'm going to play. And it's really about an individual with ALS who is able to interact with our X1 set-top box, which is our entertainment platform. using eye gaze technology. So let me share my screen, and this is always dangerous when a blind guy tries to do this in the spur of the moment here. So let me hold on one second. Yes,
Share screen button to activate, press spacebar. Annotation content render window. Video thumbnails are minimized to optimize full screen video clip screen sharing. JAWS switching. JAWS professional. Meeting controls. Meeting controls.
Hold on.
JAWS professional. Highlight vertical Windows Media Player. Cisco Windows Media Player.
All right. Can everybody see this video player up right now? Deborah, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's give it a whirl.
Text. This is the story of Jimmy Curran. He is 30 years old. He's a research analyst, a published author, a brand ambassador, and an avid Phillies sports fan.
Being independent is something that I've always tried to be. I think growing up, I was never treated differently. My dad always says, count the gifts you have, not the ones you don't have. And so that kind of made me feel just like anybody else.
Jimmy has worked hard all his life to maintain his independence.
I've been living independently since college. I bought a condo in the city, and then on the side, my passion was at children's book. I visited over 30 elementary schools in the Philadelphia area. I want to erase many of the stereotypes that are common for disability. Stereotypes that say my life is hard, right? I'm living life and enjoying it to the fullest. I love to hang out with my friends. We'll go out to different events in the city, sporting events, go out to restaurants, bars, coffee shops.
However, there are still some things he has to rely on others for.
When I have a company, we might be watching something, and then when they leave, I'm stuck watching whatever has been left on the TV.
Today, that all changes.
We just got the eye tracking technology set up.
I'm very excited that Comcast introduced the new technology.
Go ahead and gaze at the guide.
It allows me to use my eyes to operate the remote on a tablet.
And look, it launched the guide.
Wow, I did that.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that is awesome.
Great.
Going forward, this technology will allow me to operate the TV on my own.
Are you a sports guy?
I am. I don't need to depend on others to use the remote, and that is a liberating feeling. Technology is enabling me to be more independent.
When you make a product more inclusive, you create a better experience for everyone. A rainbow peacock logo. Text, Comcast NBC Universal.
So there you see, it's a little bit different than the commercial that Deborah, you were thinking about, which we don't have the rights to show here. But again, using social media really as a way to highlight different ways that technology is enhancing independence, and that video has performed very well on social media from a brand perspective as well.
I agree. And some of the commercials we see coming out of like our Super Bowl commercials in the United States. But we see a lot of really good content, and I understand that, you know, maybe it looks like, oh, marketing, we're just trying to convince people and what's in it for us, but the reality, this is how we change people's minds about what people with disabilities can do in society and why they should be included. I think that's why it's so important to me. Let me ask one more round of questions and I'll just start with Amit.
One second, Deborah, let me just unshare my screen so that it's not competing with you. Hold on one second.
Tom, it's okay, it's unscreened.
What?
All right, cool. Thank you, Tom.
Is this done? Am I not sharing now? Just want to make sure.
No, you're not sharing now.
Okay, great. Go
and
ahead.
if you want, Tom, all right, cool. So Amit, do you mind talking a little bit about, have your clients tied making, doing commercials, media, socializing, the efforts that they're making to make sure that people with disabilities are fully included, including accessibility? Are you finding that they're tying it to their corporate social responsibility?
Not enough. Well, unfortunately, everybody is focused on their tribe. And I think it really depends how inclusive a company is. It starts with its employees. Okay? How many people from different parts of society, people with disabilities, people from different ethnicities you have in your company? Those people start bringing in needs and problems, and that's, in my experience, what helps company become more inclusive. I don't think that most of the companies we work with are there yet, but I think we're making progress. This IKEA project, when it happened, it gained a lot of traction worldwide, and also, you know, got a Grand Prix in Cannes Festival. And all of my clients, all of them, came and said, why aren't you doing a project like that for us? And I said, okay, I'll take you up on your word. Let's bring in ideas and see how it happens. And so far, we didn't score one project. So it's always the next priority. We have some goals for this quarter and the next quarter and the next year. And it's always just the next priority after we finish the urgent things that we have on our desk right now. So I think we still have a long way to go. But my pitch usually is business. I think we're very close to amortizing the potential of the markets that we work in right now. And if we want to expand, we need to start looking at other Arabs. In Israel, we also have a problem with ethnicities, not just people with disabilities. The Arab sector is usually getting less attention than the Jewish sector. Female are getting less attention than male, et cetera, et cetera. So this is still, we still have a lot of work to do there.
I agree. And we see that all over the world as well. And you know, I know that I was talking on one webinar, and there was a professor from one of our well-known universities in the US. And she said what she was saying to corporations now was just hire as many brown and black people as you can. Just go out and hire as many brown and black people. And I said, okay, but you know, with the Me Too movement, we were focused on women. And you know, we say women are the largest minority, and yet there are more women in the world than men. So we're actually the majority, but we're not being included. So all the diversity and inclusion, if you're focused on, instead of looking at it from the intersectionalities of this, I think that we will continue to have the problems that you just expressed, Amit, and that, you know, people are sticking with their tribe instead of really looking at what does it mean to truly be human. So I know we're almost out of time, but let me, I want to make sure that Aubrey and Tom have one more chance to speak. So Aubrey, do you mind talking to us a little bit from your perspective, and then we'll turn it over to Tom about how Google is looking at this? Are they, do you think that they're tying it into their corporate social responsibility efforts?
Thank you very much, Emma. First, I'd like to address 2 points based on what you were mentioning. I agree that the idea that just go out and hire as many black and brown people as you can is not a comprehensive approach. And I think one way that I have expanded my own awareness over the years is it's not just about getting someone there, it's about making sure that they're safe and that they feel welcome. So one way that I think about it is it's not enough to just accept us. We need you to welcome us. So that's one point. Another is women are you mentioned that women are a huge population. one thing I like to remember is that the United Nations has called people with disabilities the largest minority in the world. So they released a report many years ago, and they said that we are the world's largest minority. So I use that a lot whenever I notice what I call the diversity list, and that heard gender, race, ethnicity, national origin, but too often disability is left off of that list. Or if it is on the list, it's tacked on at the end of the list as a symbolic afterthought. So an aspiration that I have is, I hope that in the future, anytime I see the diversity list, disability is named on that list and not at the end of the list. So, especially because the United Nations calls us the world's largest minority. So, about how Google incorporates disability into its corporate social responsibility efforts, the thought that I showed you was from Google.org. So we had an impact challenge where we committed funding for people to develop solutions to accessibility problems. And I think that over the years, Google has gotten better at thinking about disability holistically. So not just as accessibility in products, but employment, inclusion internally and externally, and that is what led to this conversation today about disability in marketing. So one more thing I'll say is that something I like, I'd like to pass a compliment to Sean or whoever wrote the questions or used them for this panel. You said disability inclusion and accessibility. I love this because too often I see people say accessibility and they think that it means disability inclusion, when really disability inclusion is much more than just accessibility. So accessibility is one part of disability inclusion. So disability as an identity is not just, I say that in some ways it is just like other diversity categories. So my identity as a woman, my identity as a Chinese American woman, but in some ways disability is not like other identities in that it directly impacts how I interact with the environment. So whether I can pick up this cup of water to the two hands. So that's, so there are multiple sides to disability inclusion, and all of them are important. And I and other disabled Googlers and employees at Google are doing our best to help Google improve in all of those aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. You always bring up such really important points. I know that we're out of time, but I want to give Tom 2 more minutes to end the webinar not the whole webinar, but in our panel for us so that I can give him one more chance to speak. So Tom, why don't you bring it home for us? And thank you to Amit and Aubrey too.
Do my best to make you proud here, Deborah. So to me, this is a journey, no matter what we're talking about here. Diversity inclusion, disability inclusion, accessibility from a product or technology standpoint, and I think, to Amit's point, I think we are definitely near a point, a tipping point, when this kind of moves forward in a different way, because it is treated as, a business case. And, while we do make business cases and treat it as such, it's still, a little touch and go at times. And so I think we need to look at it that way as a journey, and it's going to be some incremental steps forward. But if you think about where we are today, from where we are maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, you can really see that difference. In terms of how we work it into our social responsibility efforts, our focus is on digital equity. And of course, we could always do more, right? Everyone can, and we want to refine, but we have a program called Internet Essentials, where we're connecting people on fixed incomes to the internet. And that has expanded to include people with disabilities. And we know that the internet, if the technology is accessible, can be a huge leveler of the playing field. So that's certainly one area. I mentioned earlier national disability partners that we have to help us with digital equity toolkits that they can provide to individual families and such. And so helping fund those types of programs. And so, yes, we do include it as part of our social responsibility efforts. But, like anything, it's a journey, and we're always looking to refine it. And I think it really is important to look at disability holistically. My group may look at it from an inclusive design perspective and experience, but it also does need, support in the community, because we need organizations to be able to train our future talent to add to our workforce. We need organizations to train individuals on how to use assistive technology where that's appropriate, so that people can consume our products but work as well for Comcast and other companies. So I think there is a broad effort here, and as I said, it's a journey, and we're going to incrementally move this forward, and we'll, I think, continue to do this in a much more robust way by all of us working together across multiple industries and sharing information through platforms like Access Israel. So thank you very much for having me here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much to the panel, Aubrey, Thomas, and Amit, and thank you, Access Israel, for having us. Back to you, Mikhail.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The truth is, I'm so into the chat and everything that is going on there. This is exactly what we were dreaming of. Talking, communicating, sharing, exchanging opinions, and moving this thing together and forward. So thank you very, very much for the speakers, and thank you very much for everybody else. Now, this is a tradition that we started from the beginning. People asked us, why are you not using the webinar feature that you see only the speakers, you can see them larger and more focused. And we chose on purpose Zoom meetings, which has every one of you in those little boxes on the screen. First of all, because this is not a regular webinar. If you didn't understand until now, we are crazy Israelis, and we love to live up to this title. This is a community. This is what it's all about. Every webinar, we try to bring you amazing speakers and amazing ideas, but really the essence, the most important thing is the togetherness. And that is why we wanted to see you and hear you and share with you what we're doing here. So part of the tradition that we started 2 webinars ago is, besides the amazing speakers, we have amazing participants. So we're choosing every webinar 1 or 2 participants from everybody here, and giving them 2-3 minutes to just share with us what's going on in their neck of the world. And our first participant is Udi Polak, who is, it's very late at night for him. He's all the way in Thailand. Udi, are you there? Udi Polak, if you can unmute yourself. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you what's going on.
Unmuted. Do you hear me clear?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody from Thailand. It's very late. It's almost 11 p.m. and all the Thai people around me went to sleep already, and very hot here as well. And I would like to dedicate my 2.5 minutes to the person who made the revolution in Thailand, the accessibility revolution, in very few years. And I will show you very shortly this person. His name is Krisan Alalai, and I would like to tell you about him. 20 years ago, Thailand was a country with absolutely no accessibility nor any awareness to the rights of persons with disabilities. The public environment was not accessible at all, and most of the elderly and people with disabilities spent most of their lives at home. Curran that I showed you his photo, who was in those days a very famous political TV journalist, was involved in a car accident and became paraplegic. And since then, he's using a wheelchair. So he went out to the streets of Bangkok and realized that he cannot be independent anymore due to the lack of accessibility out there. How surprising. He was shocked from the situation, and he decided to dedicate his life, personal and professional, to change the situation in Thailand. In the last 2 decades, since his accident, he has established the Thailand Friendly Design Foundation. By the way, friendly design is his terms to accessibility and universal design. So he established the Thailand Friendly Design Foundation, and he's producing a special weekly TV program that's dealing only with accessibility. He's producing also dozens of events along the year, and especially the annual Friendly Design Expo, which is an exhibition that presents all the Thai organizations and companies who provide services and products to people with disabilities from Thailand. Curran is the spirit behind turning Thailand to be the leading accessible country among Asian countries. Only by his intensive PR work in his TV show and by promoting and implementing the international standards of universal design in Thailand.
Woody?
And by the way, yeah.
Yeah, last sentence, please.
Yes,
I could give you a whole hour. I'll tell you the truth. It's fascinating and interesting, but let's just sum it up.
So I will sum it up and say that as a Israeli universal designer that stayed here for the last 5 years, I feel very honored and grateful to cooperate with Curran and support his mission to turn Thailand, as he says, to be friendly for all. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today.
Thank you very much, Udi. Thanks a lot. And before we move to our next speaker, you know, towards this webinar, we reached out to our friends and colleague and network, and we asked people to send us video clips, ads from all over the world. We are going to share with you a couple of them, several of them throughout this webinar. The first one, you know, we're still, it's my party, we can do what we want to. So we're starting with showing one of the campaigns that we did several years ago when Stephen Hawkins came to Israel for 24 hours. And when we turned to him, he said, I'll give you 1 hour. Let's see what you can do with that. So if Sharon can share with us a very short video of a campaign with Stephen Hawkins.
Michal, you're on mute.
Sorry. The subtitles of the video are in Hebrew, but you have the subtitles, the captioning of the webinar, so you can use that if you need them.
In 20 years, man may be able to live on the moon. In 40 years, we may get to Mars. During the next 200 years, we may be able to leave the solar system and head for the stars. But meanwhile, we would like to be able to go to the supermarket, the cinema, and restaurants.
Look what you can do with 1 hour. So this is a great time to move to our next speaker. And I'm very, very happy to introduce Joe Devon. He's the co-founder of Diamond and of GAD, the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which I can tell you, we here in Israel celebrated it, and I'm sure in many other places around the world. Please share with us, how do you create a trend like this?
Oh my God, what a great question. Hello, Michal. Hello, Access Israel. As you'll see in this presentation, it really means a lot to me to be doing this presentation with Access Israel. How do you create this? I would say a lot of it is an accident. What happens is you sometimes just hit on something, an idea that resonates with a lot of people. And when you combine community with a vision, you can do incredible things. And it's so funny because I always kind of made fun of, in my own head, the hubris of people in the tech scene that would say, I want to change the world. I want to change the world. And then we come out with social media that gets people addicted, and we get tweets instead of, the kind of technology that I would hope would change the world. And then I wind up writing a blog post that turns into this viral event. And now I try and tell people that one person can change the world, and you should try to do so. I have one question. Since I've seen so many videos, I was so moved by some of the videos that I've seen, particularly seeing Judy Howman. If I saw it correctly, she is like a hero of mine, because she was, as a young child, climbing the steps of the Capitol Crawl, if I see it correctly. I didn't prepare this ahead of time, but I do have a Super Bowl video of the Xbox adaptive controller that was released that was announced on GAD Day. Would that be all right if I share it? Or at least try?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yuval. Let's see what happens. No guarantees, but hopefully this was going to work. There we go.
My name is Grover. Sean. My name is Ian. I'm Taylor. My name is Owen, and I am 9.
Can everyone see this?
Years old. I only have 1.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes.
Video games, my friends, my family, and again video games. Whenever I play it, it makes me feel happy. The fun that you get to have with connecting with your friends. Do you make your own rules?
It's his way of interacting with his friends when he can't physically otherwise do it.
When I'm playing with a regular controller, there's some things that don't work for me. It's difficult for me to use both joysticks and the D-pad at the exact same time. And it just slowed me down a bunch more, while other people were like...
She's never had the freedom to play at the level she knows she could.
I never thought it was unfair. I just thought, hey, this is the way it is and it's not going to change. What I like about the adaptive controller is that now everyone can play. I don't even have to look at the controller, just like look at the screen like, hey, you never want your kid to feel like an outsider or an other.
One of the biggest fears early on is how will Owen be viewed by the other kids? He's not different when he plays.
It's a little challenging, but that's the whole point of the game. I can hit the buttons just as fast as they can. And I think I can crush my friends. No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
So when, I can speak until I'm blue in the face about awareness, the importance of awareness, the importance of accessibility, but nothing really has the impact, I think, on a typical developer or designer as looking at a video such as that one. And the reason is simple. These kids aren't looking for pity. They don't want pity. They don't want that look in people's eyes. They just want to play a video game. And those of us that are building technology, we're doing this so that people can enjoy the work that we're doing. And why not make it available for everyone? And sometimes what's missing in developers' minds or designers or anyone working on digital products, I don't want to leave out any group here, is that we're reaching millions of people, and people are different, and they may not look like you, they may not have the same physical appearance or abilities as you do, but everyone deserves to really have a good experience. So now I'm going to begin my actual presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this is the only the view rather than the speaker's notes. Let's see, how do I get this working? Oh wait, this is the wrong screen. Do you see a presentation slide in front of you?
No, we see the black screen still. You have to get out and come in, come back in.
Yeah, I tried to share, let me see. I think it's just on the wrong one. One second there. Now, do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to be sharing the story of the creation of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, GAD for short, and the lessons learned along the way. My name is Joe Devon. I'm 5'9", 53 years old, with mostly gray hair, even though I'm kind of trying to deny that, and I asked my barber to only cut the gray hairs, but it's not really working. So that is the appearance. All the speakers were asked to give a little description there to make this more accessible. So I am really excited to do this with Access Israel because there's a personal meaning for me, which is my father was the inspiration for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and I've never spoken about this publicly, but my father actually was Ezer Layot Kaspi La Medina, which means the advisor to the economic finance minister, who was Pinchas Sapir back in the day in the 60s. And my father was actually asked by Sapir to help bring the diamond industry to Israel. And my father negotiated with, I believe it was Nicky Oppenheimer, or one of the Oppenheimers from De Beers, in order to bring sites to Israel. And as you can see, Israel is one of the diamond centers today. And obviously it was a success. And if you ask some old timers in the diamond industry about, and the original name was not Devon, it was Davidovich. So, you know, in reality, I named the company Diamond as a result of this, this history. So this is something I usually don't tell people. So just to give you a little bit of background, so you understand my perspective in coming to the world of accessibility. My company grew out of American Idol, which to international audiences, I don't know how aware people are of American Idol, but it was the #1 show on television back then when we were working on it, and by far, and it was really a part of the culture. And so being able to work on such a highly trafficked site with millions of users, in fact, the saying always went that more people voted for American Idol than for the president of the United States. And so this allowed us, as soon as we started a company, we had a good reputation internally, and we were told to grow as fast as we could because we would get a ton of business. And this allowed us to do a lot of work for the major broadcast networks like Fox, Disney, Viacom. And later, you know, we've done work on robots and sensors, and even done some work for the Pope. So it really runs the gamut. So I'm really coming at this from the perspective of a software developer that builds enterprise software. Around the same time as I co-founded Diamond, I also co-founded Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And it began with an indignity. This is a picture of my father at NASA JPL at 87 years old. And my father was one of those people that when he walked in a room, he commanded respect. You just knew right away there was something of substance here. My dad was a Talmudic scholar. He probably could tell you he could probably do all of the 5 books of the Bible, the Old Testament by heart, but also a lot of the Gemara. He just knew it. Like you would be shocked. You talk about something and he'd just start to dictate it. Just brilliant. But he was equally good at science and had as big a love of science as he did the Talmud. He spoke 10 languages, 11 if you count Aramite. And as he used to say, he was a graduate of the universities of Auschwitz and Dachau. So as my dad got older and started to lose his eyesight and his hearing, it was very, very painful process to watch. And when you have somebody of such a stature that can't do something as simple as banking, it's painful to watch. And in order to go to the bank physically, it required an all-day trip using Access Paratransit, which was a facility that the elderly or people with disabilities are able to order, but it requires a day in advance. You might have to wait for hours, and God knows it could be extremely hot. So it was not an easy situation. On the telephone was impossible for my father to hear. And the reality is, why is accessibility a civil right? It's because if you can't bank, you can't be independent. If you can't go to the website, a government website of the IRS, and they expect you to pay taxes, that's the reason that it's a civil right. So banking is one of the first places that accessibility really got noticed. And online banking should have been the answer for someone like my father, but the bank was inaccessible, unfortunately. So I have a screenshot here of a blog post I wrote on November 27, 2011, proposing that we create a Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And you have to know this is on MySQL Talk, which probably had about 10 people ever look at this blog. And from this, it grew to an unbelievable success, which I'll just quickly show you some examples here. In the first year, my co-founder, Jennison, who at the time was an accessibility advocate out of Toronto, ironically working for a bank, we thought if we work really hard, we can make a little success out of this. We know we'll at least have one event in Los Angeles, where I was at the time, and one in Toronto. But by the first year, we had 16 events. India made a governmental event. It made my hometown paper in Canada. And we're in 16 cities, and the great Stephen Fry even tweeted it out, which was quite a good day for us. But unfortunately, by year 2, it got a lot more difficult to plan anything, as my dad got cancer and passed away a few months before GAD. So I was not expecting much to happen in the second year. But in fact, because this was a grassroots movement, and really what happened was there was an idea. I think a lot of people in the community loved seeing that a developer actually cared about accessibility, because I believe that a lot of people think that it's about not caring. And here was somebody that was not in the community saying, hey, let's create something for accessibility. So as you see, we started to gather logos. I like to say like a NASCAR or a race car. They love to have logos on their cars. So we started to collect these logos of companies that got involved. And by year 2, we already had a whole bunch of them. Year 3, we gained even more. Universities got in the picture, gaming companies, CIOs of states and cities. And then, we also had something happen that put chills down my spine. And it was the first of many moments that would bring chills down my spine. And the reason is that the bank that was inaccessible, I have never mentioned their name publicly. They wrote us an email and they said, please don't say this to anyone out loud, but we just want you to know that we are taking the opportunity with Global Accessibility Awareness Day to do internal events in order to teach our developers how to make things more accessible, because we know we aren't very good at accessibility. And I've never changed it, had that kind of impact on an organization internally, let alone externally by writing a blog post and then having this come along. So it was quite a moment. And then, year 4, as you can see, we got more logos. We were recognized in the LA City Council. We started trending on Twitter. We're in 48 cities. Facebook released an accessibility toolkit, and we started to get a lot of press. Year 5, you know, even more logos. I could go on. And then by year 6, I couldn't even track it anymore. It just got too big. And then I'll just share quickly a few more. Oh, and I should also add that we got to the point of 200 million unique users on the GAD hashtag. And then I stopped tracking because the Twitter's active user count is 200 million. So we can't really go beyond there. Some of the big events was that Apple would host concerts on campus with Stevie Wonder and other names. As you saw, the commercial, Microsoft released the Xbox controller. A lot of these big tech companies started to change their homepage for the day, Apple, Microsoft, Yahoo. And the reason I'm just sharing this with you is to realize the impact that one person can have when they have a good idea and attach it to a community, because one blog post on a nothing blog impacted $1 trillion in market cap, just looking at it from a business terms. And that is the power of community.
Amazing. Can you...
1 second, Michal.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yes.
People are asking, what is actually GAD? What is actually doing?
Oh, I apologize. Sorry. So the concept of Global Accessibility Awareness Day is to inspire developers, designers, and people who build products to make digital accessibility, to be more aware of digital accessibility, to make sure that we build products with accessibility in mind. And I apologize. I definitely should have mentioned that. I basically wrote the entire presentation last night, so it was I didn't get a chance to practice this too much. Does that answer the question?
And how can people participate for next year?
So it is the 3rd Thursday in May every year. And the easiest way is if you go to globalaccessibilityawarenessday.org, you will see all kind of different ways to participate. You can do an event, an online event locally. You can do a blog post, reach out to a reporter to tell them that this is the day and to pay attention to accessibility. Yeah. Should I keep going?
Closing remarks.
Oh, really? Okay. Whoa, what happened there? Okay. Sorry. Gosh, I have a lot more in the presentation, but essentially I was bringing up all of the history of GAD mostly to go toward the point that today 98% of websites are inaccessible, and we need to actually focus on this 98%. And you know, coming at this from the perspective of a software developer, I noticed that the industry is really, in a lot of ways, focused on the legal ramifications of sites, ticking boxes and making sure that we do audits and remediation, and we're a lot less focused on the 98% of the websites that are not accessible, of the digital products that are not accessible. And we need to take a different tack in this respect in order to reach out to enterprise companies in order to, because most of the software that we consume today is coming from enterprise software, and the enterprise companies don't know how to create accessible software. I only got to a small percentage of the actual talk, so there was a lot more behind it, and I apologize. I guess the time ran a little bit long. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Yeah.
First of all, and I must say, I love the combination of the personal story with the event, with the GAD, with the accomplishment on a global level, because this is where it all starts, you know, statistically, and you know, it starts from something that comes from the heart, and the ripple effect of it is amazing. don't apologize, because first of all, we will have the presentation, with your permission, accessible online in the website, the global website. People can come in, look at it, and if they have any questions, to really contact you directly. And listen, GAD Day is in June, right? So May or June, May, sorry. Yeah. So we can have you over again then, and then you can elaborate even more. So thank you very much for this. And the comments in the chat is you'll read them through, and truly inspiring. So thanks again. Now, again, we said short videos. I have to share something that made me laugh from one of our amazing first international friends, Klaus Huckner, from Help from the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austria. I'd love for you to do this.
You know, Bob, one day the people are going to scream too late, and then we'll all be killed.
And just to give a description for whoever is not able to see, it's an animated short video clip showing people on a plane, and the pilot's blind with a cane and a walking dog going to the cockpit. Everybody gets nervous. The plane is going to the cliff, and once they come to the cliff, everybody yells, and then you heard what the pilot said. So thank God people are screaming on the right time, and it's giving us an angle of looking at the world a little differently. So thanks for that. And now I'm very, very happy to welcome Yuval Wagner, the chairman and founder of Access Israel, to talk about creating trends. Again, practical. Go for it, Yuval.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Okay, so today I will take a few minutes of your time.
Yuval, if you can open the presentation, because we see it now in the with the slides on the side. So just
no, I wanted to.
I wanted to.
So I'm going to try to share from my experience, from Access Israel experience, of making the trend in Israel to something that is hopefully practical for you to implement in any place you are coming from. So as we understand, awareness is important. So when we do awareness, we want to reach the following target. First of all, we want to know about people with disabilities and accessibility. Our target is to understanding why it's so important. Meaning that what we want to reach by teaching others, by having others to understand, is why it's so important. Understanding what is needed to be implemented. Because, it's not just understanding that there are people with disabilities as users, what is accessibility, why it's important, but also what we have to do in implementation. We also want to reach another level, which is have our target clients truly believe in the importance of the mission. Not that enough, we want them to also willing to furthermore advocating it forward. Not only them being understanding, but also them being willing now to advocate it to others. And the last thing, and the most important, is acting, doing something about it. So I'm always saying that when you try to sell someone something, in our case, selling the importance of accessibility, the response that you want to expect is the answer or the question, what can we do about it? So then you can go to the next stage and actually do things. When we're talking about awareness, we have three target markets. One is when we approach decision makers. Decision makers can be ministers, can be CEOs, can be municipality mayors, can be company CEOs, managers of organizations usually. And we want them to actually adopt and implement. Also, another target is the general public. The general public, we don't expect them to implement, but we expect them, the general support, to avoid stigmas, to be caring about accessibility, to be our friends in the issue of accessibility. And lastly, of course, we have people with disabilities and their families that for them, we are doing all of this. And we want them to know about what accessibility are there, what it enables them, how to use it, so they actually enjoy, use, and improve their quality of life and equality. Now, when you do accessibility awareness, of course, they have many missions that you can attack. We saw before that God Day is all about digital accessibility. Some markets can be about the physical environment or universal design, some about accessible services, and many, many more. It can also be different mission to different subjects. For example, you can do awareness about health, education, transportation. So the issue of accessibility, as you all know, it's a very wide issue, and accessibility can be something, accessibility awareness can be a campaign or work on something very general, but it can also be on various markets and various subjects according to what you want to achieve and gain. Now, in order to do that, there are many ways to do awareness. From our experience, one of the most important things that you can do is get the press to work with you. If you get TV shows, you know, newspapers, can you put someone on mute? Newspapers, writers, and etc. Okay, the press is probably your best friend in making campaigns, because as we talked before with Shira from the Ruderman Foundation, you get a lot of people know about it, a lot of media talking about it. And the press likes a lot two things. One, to see bad things happen, to write about it, and sometimes to show good things. So using the press is a great tool. Second one is advertising campaigns. We saw about that too. We saw a lot of campaigns. And it's important to see how to use these campaigns as in our approach, where we think that it should be very authentic and not, we don't want companies or other advertising using people with disabilities for their causes, but actually making a win-win between the campaign and our issue of awareness of accessibility. But as you can see, a lot of advertising campaigns, sometimes they approach the issue itself, the awareness issue itself, and sometimes they are for donations. Also, donation campaigns are doing good for awareness, but it's a different ballgame rather than just ad hoc advertising awareness campaigns. Badges of success. Organizations love ceremonies. They love badges. So if you invent all kinds of success badges, motivating organizations to implement, it's a great way, a great concept to do. The business model. In Israel, what we have made a case why accessibility is the right business decision to make, why a good organization is a good implementing accessibility, it equals making more profit. This was another successful model here in Israel, much before that we had any legislations. A lot of business companies loved that concept and invested in making and implementing accessibility just for this concept, not because they had any regulations. Leaders forums, any leaders forums from any area. The best are having leader forums from the business area. We truly believe that businessmen, as we said before, if we convince them and they really believe in that, if they get together and they trying to motivate each other, it's a great concept of leadership. We did it very successfully in Israel, and later on you will hear Carol and Casey about the Valuable 500, which is a great case too. Leaders Forum, we talked. Unique days, we just listened to about the GAD Day, the Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and we just, a few days ago, we had the International Awareness Day of the UN Enables, and we had the Purple Day. So they have a lot of initiatives of unique days. Unique days, a great opportunity for getting everyone together to one day to talk about the issues of awareness. The use of public motivators, and when I'm saying public motivators, I'm talking about people with disabilities themselves, authentic people doing public motivations. It started pretty much by TED and TEDx, where we saw more and more people with disabilities pitching about issues of disabilities, but more and more companies are inviting people with disabilities as public motivators, as speakers, to make awareness, which is amazing. Again, we see an impact in each one of these directions. You see a large impact of one action to many actions. I do want to emphasize the positive approach. We are equal. We are not asking, we're not begging. It's our rights. We own it, and we talk about it in a positive approach where this is the right thing to be happening, and this is actually what's going to be happen. And the last thing that we are very known for, especially our Michal, our CEO, this is her baby of accessibility training, but it's not just training people how to do accessibility and how to implement and how to consult and how to serve, but the way to pass accessibility training is by experiential training, that people will actually be themselves with disabilities, feel what it means, feels what it likes, experience it, and then the way they act, thinks, and know is better and comes from the gut. So why it's so important? Because positive accessible trend has a dramatic impact on decision makers. So on one hand, on politicians, we can, when we emphasize on this niche or this target market, we can have them help us to make legislation. On the other hand, when we approach organization leaders, we have large organization implementing accessibility. So when we have awareness, legislation, and the implementation, we get a lot of work actually being done. Things are being improved. So the stronger the trend, the stronger the implementation will be. It's just a new benchmark. You make the benchmark, everyone is targeting this new benchmark, and then everything is being implemented. It's not happening in a month, it's not in a year, but it's a process that it's ongoing process and it's happening. And lastly, changing the DNA, not focusing on superheroes, but people like everyone else. What we mean by that is we don't want to take, as Shirar Ruderman says, actors that are playing people with disabilities. Of course not. But we don't want also just to take for example, the Paralympics, which are amazing. They're doing amazing. But at the end of the day, we want to show the real people with disabilities, the ones that were born like this, the ones that were wounded, the ones that were sick, the ones that got elderly, people themselves. This is the true stories. It's a real power. And my last slide is trend and awareness is not all. We need other things to happen too, which is legislation, professional consultants, research and development, implementation models, inclusion of employees with disabilities. It's also last month was mentioned. Big issue, very important one. A lot of hard work. I know it for myself and for my Access Israel team and all of you guys that are friends. We all know how much work it's taking to promote accessibility, and the more is better. So concluding my speech about how to do awareness and some tips from our experience, we want to show another short video. Thank you very much.
Yuval, we don't, no. Thank you very much, Yuval. If you can unshare your screen. For those who did not see, first of all, thank you for an amazing and practical, as always, presentation. For whoever was not able to see the short video, this was a campaign, and if we're talking about making trends and raising awareness does not have to be a big deal. It's not something that has to be planned for months and months in advance. This campaign that Yuval showed was decided upon on Sunday and executed on Friday and broadcasts on the following Sunday. The idea was the biggest obstacle was to get a lot of umbrellas, blue umbrellas. Once we got that, we got people with and without disability to the largest square in Tel Aviv, the largest city in Israel. And basically what we did was photograph them from above and from ground level, people smiling together with and without disability. And then they formed basically three things. They formed the word negishut, which is accessibility in Hebrew, and regishut, which is sensitivity. The difference between the two words, just required 4 people to move with the umbrellas, and that's it. So we wanted to show that accessibility equals sensitivity, which is one of what you have in back of me. It's a slogan that we use a lot, and the international logo of people with disability. And the idea is we're sharing this. If you want, I have a room full of umbrellas that I would love to ship anywhere around the world where you want to repeat this. It's simple, it's easy. Just, try to make this issue something that is fun and for people to look at it and say, hey, cool, I want to be part of this. So this was the trend making an example from us. Now, okay, the next speaker, and again, contacts and network is something very important. I can tell you that I was introduced to our next speaker by a mutual friend of ours, Victor Calisi, Commissioner for People with Disabilities in New York City, who has been a guest on these webinars several times. And he told me a couple of years ago that I have to get to know Real Abilities because they have a great initiative that changes perceptions and raises awareness. Well, Victor was right, and as I hope you will see in a moment, and Real Abilities is a perfect fit for today's topic. So I'm very happy to introduce Isaac Zablocki. He is the festival co-founder, Real Ability Film Festival, New York director from New York, and New York Real Ability Film Festival is now the world's largest disability film festival, running over 20 cities around the globe. So Isaac, please share with us how disability film can be used as a vehicle for change, please.
Thank you, Michal. So Real Abilities Film Festival, for those who are not familiar, is, as mentioned, and a big thank you, to, of course, to Access Israel for including us, and to Victor Calisi for connecting. I'll describe myself. I'm a very pale man in his mid-40s, wearing a black vest and a blue sweater with a button down underneath it, and I hope that's not a fashion faux pas. I have a receding hairline. And thank you all for listening. In general, of course, as you've seen today, film is an amazing tool. It's a powerful tool, and with great power comes great responsibility, of course, as I think Spider-Man said. We see film as a form of education. It changes us. It is constantly impacting us. And even more so, life often mimics art. And I know trends are often set through media and film. And we've heard a little bit about this today already from some of our speakers about the impact and the powerful approach. Real Abilities tries to take a progressive approach and tries to find films, I think succeeds in finding films that are not just about disability, but actually include disability in the most progressive way through great films that are not reaching the mainstream and are possibly going to shed new light on the way we see disability. And there's a lot of representations of disability that are out there that are not that might be authentic, but are not necessarily, as some people mentioned here, not necessarily helping the disability community as far as its portrayals being, let's say, showing people with disabilities as either superheroes, superhuman, or worse, of course, just evil caricatures. And we try to tell the human stories at Real Abilities. And we try to reach 2 main core audiences. One, the disability community, when we celebrate the community. It's a week in the festival where we celebrate people with disabilities of all kinds, and try to put disabilities in the spotlight. It's nice that Sundance is including people with disabilities, but there are so many more films out there that it really means that they need to be put in the spotlight. But at the same time, we want to use films to bridge gaps with I'll call it the mainstream audience that possibly does not yet realize what a connection they have to the disability world, and try to improve the way disabilities are presented through film. So we're trying to change these perceptions, break taboos, and really challenge representations by really showing responsible films. Film in general, let me just say for a moment, is low barrier entertainment. It is entertaining. These films are all fun and engaging. Films can be really far reaching. You could send them anywhere in the world, especially today. We could get into every home this year when we ran our first accessible film festival. Our first virtual film festival. It was our most accessible to date because suddenly we were in people's homes where we had never been before. We were always having to make people come to us. We'll continue doing that even once this pandemic is over. Films are, of course, emotional and impactful and stay with you. So this is such a crucial tool for change. We've mentioned here that Hollywood has been guilty of misrepresentation, and we're trying to change that. And I think there's a revolution going on, and we've heard a little bit, and we've heard earlier from the Ruderman Foundation a little bit about some of those numbers and the changes. And a lot of that is happening through all the streaming platforms that are kind of breaking down these barriers, but also thanks to, I'd say even the Academy is a part of this revolution, some hits that have come out, and it's really been a group effort that has been fighting for years. Real Abilities has been going on for 14 years, and we've joined this effort, and we're seeing major change, and this is something that's amazing. We are seeing just so much more representation and better representation. They've mentioned Peanut Butter Falcon, Crip Camp, and many more, but specifically I'm going to highlight a show like Rami as a great example. I don't know if anybody here sees Hulu's Rami, but there's a show where the best friend happens to have a disability, and it is presented, you know, with no boundaries. It is really a beautiful representation and like a classic Real Abilities approach. As I've mentioned, and this is something for the rest of you to take as a tool, Real Abilities is a national program, and we run out of New York, but then we spread into dozens of cities across the globe. So this is something that's easy to replicate, and I believe Yara Kedim, who runs our national program, is here on the call with us as well. Yuval asked earlier in one of the sessions, he asked, why is authenticity so important? And I can tell you, as somebody who watches, I run a few other film festivals as well. And of course, disability is very close to my heart. But when you see films that are authentically made, you're getting a higher quality of film, bottom line. You are getting true representation. You're getting a deep human nuanced story and a nuanced representation. And I think that often elevates these stories and makes them stronger than anything else you see out there. And I have to say that still, we do not see enough representation out there. We are going to share a movie, which is a lot of fun. So this is a film from years ago, from an early Real Abilities. It's called Macropolis. And one of the nice things about it is that, first of all, it is extremely accessible to all ages beyond all of its accessibility aids. Unfortunately, today, we do not have here the version that is audio described. Of course, at Real Abilities, all of our films are shown with audio description and open captions. Actually, we push to put those captions on the screen, and we're trying to push other film festivals to start showing these captions open. I mean, you could show subtitles, but you can't show captions. That's something that's a little strange to me. So it's part of the movement that we're looking to change and make films in general more accessible and make film festivals also more accessible. We're also taking these films into the educational and professional places and showing these films in movie theater, in offices, and taking them all throughout the month of October, which is Disability Employment Awareness Month. We show these films at major corporations where you hear that like 2% or less of their employees are admitting to have disabilities. Hopefully through these films, people will be changing attitudes and people will start opening more dialogue about disability. And that's the last thing I'll change, is that all of our films are followed by conversation, because it's not enough just to put these films out there and for them to touch you. They need to actually have a responsible conversation after them. So I'm going to do something really irresponsible now and show you a film through Zoom, which you've been doing all day, but it's it's the tools we have right now. And and not the best way to see a film, but I think you'll get the picture. The film is also silent. Unfortunately, it means that without the audio description, it'll be hard to follow, but it tells the story of two dolls that are thrown out, that are cast away in their factory. One is missing a leg and one is missing an eye. And they go on a road trip together to try to find their place in this world.
Isaac, I will just mention there is a problem with the captioning. We are trying to fix it. In any case, in the recording that will be uploaded, we will have full captioning. So if you're not sure and you missed, again, my apologize. Technical difficulties is something that is beyond our control sometimes. So we will try to fix it momentarily. Thank you, Isaac.
I'm sharing my screen. The film is called Macropolis. Please enjoy.
Wow, I loved it.
Thank you. Of course, we can. There's so much there, and there's so much to discuss. But I know we're short for time, so I hand it back to you.
So Isaac, first of all, thank you. And Isaac was very kind to whoever needed audio description, just let us know, write us. We will make sure, thanks to Isaac, to send you a link so you will be able to enjoy it. Captioning is back on, by the way, whoever needs it. And I love this video, this movie, and from the reactions, I see that I'm not the only one. Okay, now our next speaker is, and you know what, Isaac, just before I move to the next speaker, if anybody wants to bring real ability to their country, how is it done?
I will share the email in the chat if that's okay, but I'll give you an easy one, which is film@jccmanhattan.org. Again, it's film@jccmanhattan.org, and we'll share our Real Abilities email in the chat so people can.
And you'll log on to our website so people can contact you directly through there. Thank you very much again. And now I am very happy. You know, one of the best parts of my job is building up for these webinars and meeting amazing people that I didn't know before. And one of the eye-opening talks that I had before this webinar is with our next speaker. So I would love to introduce to you Josh Lubner. He is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategies at Design Sensory. Josh is a blind disability advocate, has been in the advertising industry for 20 years, and is a PhD candidate focusing on advertising and disability. Could this be more perfect for our webinar today? Josh, please, shaping trends in the creative process. Let's hear it from you.
Thanks so much. I just want to confirm, can everybody both hear me and see the slide on screen that says Crip Theory and Creative Briefs?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Just a little bit to describe myself, and I'll try to remain to the 15 minutes. If there is a time limit coming up, please alert me vocally versus chat. But real quick about me, I have long COVID hair. I've not gotten a haircut in quite a while, and I'm kind of okay with it. I wear brown glasses. I love purple, so purple blazer on today. And my disability is I'm blind. My left eye, fully blind. It's actually a glass eye. And my right eye, I am legally blind. As you heard, I am one of the first people to pursue a PhD focusing on advertising and disability. And along with that, I'm excited to be a contributing writer for Adweek, being able to share more stories about disability inclusion. I do want to share, though, that Black Lives Matter. And what we've seen in advertising has been a fundamental shift where brands have dynamically changed everything from their brand names. And this is US brands, whether it's Aunt Jemima, which is a syrup brand, or Cream of Wheat, which had a person of color as an icon, or at NASCAR sporting events, car racing events, the banning of Confederate flags, or football teams changing their names from the Redskins to others. Even Mississippi removing its Confederate flag from its flag design. So where does that leave people with disabilities? Well, disability impacts all of us. Here in America, 1 in 4 people has a disability, and globally that number is relatively similar. The interesting point about disability is that it's open 24/7. So anybody of any group can be a part of the disability community. It's vast and it's large. The challenge, though, in advertising is that while we are seeing some positive trends, since few people in advertising have disabilities, either in front of the screen or behind the screen, people's perceptions are that it's a small group and not as large as it is. Advertising does shape our reality. And I will say, if I'm going fast, this presentation will be shared. I just want to be cognizant of the time that we have. So advertising shapes our identity. Some people think advertising is vapid and not significant, but look at your clothes, look at the brands you wear, look at the places you dine at, the cars you drive. Advertising is significant in our world, not only for the features and benefits of products, but how we shape our reality from a societal standpoint, including recognition or lack thereof of people with disabilities. And that started long ago, where people thought that disability didn't belong in public. This slide shows a book cover that has a woman with a lanyard that says blind around her neck. There were various laws across the United States that limited peoples with disability from being in the public where they could be fined or arrested. Of course, war atrocities from World War II continued that, where people with disabilities were not seen in society. Disappointingly, some of those views continue to persist, where you see a poster here that says "Sacrifice the Weak." This was at the onset of COVID in my home state of Tennessee. Disability, though, is about protest and being able to gain more rights, whether it's protests from the 1970s or the late 80s for the Americans with Disabilities Act. Disability, though, for far too often hasn't belonged in advertising. Interestingly enough, while we are seeing more positive trends in advertising, is it really just potentially considered because it's good for the advertiser from the standpoint of publicity? Who's to say? But one thing is for sure, that during COVID, there have been very little advertisements featuring people with disabilities. And interestingly enough, in this article that I wrote, so many brands tried to wrap their creativity around showcasing that they can be a part of society during the lockdown, during health protocols. And many of those health protocols and lockdowns were really for people with disabilities. But in fact, people with disabilities haven't been seen in advertising of late, and that is a significant challenge. And while we are seeing more welcoming elements of disability, again, is it really focused on more everyday representations of people with disability? So while we are seeing positives, there are some challenges still, and there's a creative pendulum. In that pendulum in the middle is what we want. We simply want inclusion, but certain portrayals tend to share pity or othering or infantilism or super crip representations or pandering, or ultimately some brands just don't include people with disabilities because they don't know what to do. Some brands incorporate disability and other minorities from a virtue signaling standpoint. Virtue signaling is basically a thin veneer of representation. And that means that they take the least amount possible way to be able to showcase their affinity or connection with disability. And we don't want that. We want deeper, more entrenched representations beyond just a simple spot during the Paralympics and no more every 4 years, but to recognize that disability is part of society every day. From a research standpoint, and also from a connectivity standpoint, we're seeing a lot of studies being done when it comes to advertising that's being consumed. We do understand how it's impacting consumers, both positively and negatively. But one of the challenges is that while we have shared a lot of ads that feature positive portrayals, the disappointing consideration is that within the advertising creative process, from a trend standpoint, we aren't incorporating disability as readily as we could within creative briefs, within incorporating creative people with disabilities in the process, within the creative production, and within campaign creation. And I will reiterate something that has been shared earlier. Accessibility is significant, it's powerful, it is a human right, but we need to go more beyond accessibility within our creative portrayals and production of advertising. So herein is where disability education can come in, to be able to be inserted in various aspects of the creative process, to be able to welcome more disability conversations and commitments, so that we're not just being compliant from a checkbox standpoint, but truly and more deeply entrenching disability education, because that's what's needed. We need to be able to ensure that those young professionals who are entering the advertising industry have the skills that they need. And so we need to step away even from the professional conversations that we're having to more advertising education at the university and college level, to be able to ensure that in classrooms, we're talking about disability inclusion again in a way that doesn't just teach skills to ensure accessibility for a website or a TV commercial with open captioning, but as well, the reason behind that people with disabilities need to belong not only in the advertising from, again, an accessibility standpoint, but much more deeply, and also to recruit people with disability. Young people in high school should be able to see that if they have a disability, advertising should be a welcomed industry for them. The interesting thing about advertising is that it is the industry that celebrates differentiation. that celebrates iconoclasts. And so young people with disabilities should gravitate to advertising, because right now there are so few people with disabilities in advertising. While we are seeing more people depicted in it, there are extremely low numbers employed in the industry. Just to share a few words here that represent disability. Trends are valuable and important, and language helps to carry and bring out and diminish trends. So on the left side of the screen are words that from a trend standpoint are no longer positive. Now again, everybody has their own interpretation, so I'm not saying that these need to be forced down anyone from a thinking or critical knowledge standpoint, but just to understand that many people with disabilities don't want to be considered handicapped or crippled or handicapable or differently abled or special needs or invalid or invalid, but rather we want to celebrate disability. We don't simply want to be seen from a medical model standpoint, but recognized from a cultural and social model. We're not one-dimensional, but rather there's an intersectionality. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I am blind. We don't want to be seen as from an ableist perspective where we're looked down upon. We want to be equitable. And from an advertising standpoint, that means to operationalize disability doesn't simply mean to include people with disability in films, but films or in the advertisements themselves, but rather how can you be equitable from employing people with disabilities on your teams? We definitely don't want inspiration porn that points at us and that gawks at us and that has people staring at us, but rather we want allyship with people who are abled. We definitely don't want infantilism where people, for example, who might be in a wheelchair or a little person get patted on the head and be seen as childlike. We don't always need help. We want to be seen and portrayed as adults, and we want to be adults from a critical thinking standpoint as colleagues of employees or potentially as students in a classroom. We definitely don't want to simply be seen as super crip every 4 years during the Paralympics, but rather 24/7, I'm blind. And so how can social normalization be incorporated into not only our vernacular and into our language from a trend standpoint, but into our commitments we have as companies and as consumers. Brands, advertisers, corporations don't simply need to be disability friendly, but rather ensure that they can share disability facts. How accessible is their building? How accessible is their ride share? What are some ways that you can be very definitive in your recognition of people with disabilities on your website and in your communications? We definitely are not second class, but rather citizens. Website accessibility, I cannot share the value, the significance, and the importance of it. Many brands, though, still don't see the value of it, but I do want to say that we need to go beyond website accessibility to thinking about a broader brand ecosystem where we can have accessible social media. And in some places it is, for example, LinkedIn. And many companies are starting to welcome accessibility into their social media posts, as we've seen today. But as well, what other places are be able to be accessible? And finally, disability ideas. This is an interesting consideration, and understanding many people on this may have different first languages that you speak. IDEAS is an acronym that brings out inclusive, diverse, equitable, accessible successes. And this is significant and important, specifically with the disability community, because too often, again, as we've heard, while accessibility is a human right and it is critical, we need to think of a broader, more holistic approach to welcoming people with disability, in that accessibility is a table stakes. It is the entry to considering people with disabilities in advertising and marketing. But beyond that, we need to share ways at how we can welcome diversity into disability, and not only showing, for example, white people, but others. We need to be equitable in our approaches and ultimately successful from a business success metric standpoint to be able to track and value people with disabilities from a business imperative. And finally, I'll share this. Accessibility is being able to get into a building. Diversity is getting invited to the table. Inclusion is having a voice at the table, but ultimately belonging is having your voice at the table, and that's what we want. We want belonging. With that, that is my presentation. I ran through it relatively quickly. I'm happy to continue from a question standpoint, or to progress with the conference, we can continue.
Josh, I will make it easier for you. I'm already telling you that in October, we have our, hopefully, God willing, our next face-to-face conference. I can tell you, you can answer all the questions you want over there, because after this presentation, we have to have you over. The reactions are amazing. I think people are taking your presentation to politicians. And Ricardo, what are we doing? Politicians, schools, universities. If Ricardo said it, listen, it will be done. So thank you for an amazing and inspiring presentation. Definitely a must. And we will make sure everybody who asked, as with all the other presentations, we will make sure to put them on our website, the international website for the webinar. And we will also upload the webinar video with captioning so you can watch it. We will try to even break down to a lecture so you can really focus on what you want. Josh, thank you so much, and see you in Israel, okay?
And thank you so much. It's a lifelong dream to come to Israel, and that would be very valued. Thank you.
I'm a dream fulfiller, okay? So we'll work on that. Thank you very much. Yes, I see all those raising your hands. You're all invited. We will send you information later on. But and now I am very happy and very proud to have our next speaker from Leo Burnett. Leo Burnett is publicity. How do you say? Commercial. PR company, Elizabeth, you're going to help me with that. I lost the word for a second, but I tell you that advertising agency. Yes, thank you. Well, when the story goes, the story goes that when Yuval founded Access Israel 21 years ago, he came to the founder, to the head of what was Geller Nessis and became Leo Burnett in all the hand changing throughout the years, and basically told him, listen, I have good news to you. I want to be your client, and I want to be a very busy and substantial client, but I don't want to pay anything. I want it to be pro bono. Yair Geller said, hold on, I will think about it. I'll get back to you. And that evening he called Yuval and invited him for a presentation the next morning to come and learn both about each other. And I think that one of the ways Access Israel looks good throughout the years is a lot because of Leo Burnett and the predecessing names that and ownerships that you had. But you are an amazing, amazing bunch. And I am more than happy and proud to have you talk about people, not symbol, something we're very proud of. Please, Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Stahl, as Michal introduced me. I work here. I maybe should take off my glasses because they're causing quite reflection in people's eyes. I am a female, 33 years old. I have long red hair. I'm currently wearing a black t-shirt. It's quite dark outside, so I might blend into the background a bit here. And apologies for the reflections. It's a bit difficult here at night with the Zoom. I have worked at Leo Burnett here in Israel for the last 4 years. I actually want to share a quick, it's not a presentation, as I want to thank Josh ahead of me for quite a quick and amazing presentation. I wish it had gone on for a lot longer because it's very interesting. And I don't want to repeat some of the things that he said because I do think that our worlds are very overlapping. But I do want to share a presentation that will just help me organize my thoughts when speaking to you in the next 10 minutes. Please indicate if you are able to see the presentation. Okay, and just the presentation, correct? Not anything else. Okay, so first, we at Leo Burnett did a campaign for Access Israel a few years ago called People.
Liz, I'm sorry, but we see also your remarks.
Oh, okay. Then
so let's
exit that. Just a quick 1 second. How do I apologies. I thought I had this down. Does it work now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As I said, this presentation is just to help me organize my thoughts. It's not as rich as others. So basically, I work for Leo Burnett Israel. Leo Burnett is a worldwide agency, advertising agency that was founded in Chicago. It's part of a Publicis Group. We have more than 9,000 employees worldwide at 85 offices. As I said, I am based in Tel Aviv. Some of our biggest clients here in Tel Aviv are Samsung, Pizza Hut, Nespresso. We work with brands. We work with big companies. And we work with Access Israel. We have a few organizations that we work with pro bono. And this partnership is extremely important to us. Why? You say, we are all about bringing brands to the forefront of culture, making them being seen and stand out in front of society, in front of people. But I think what's so important, the bottom line of what I have to say and about People Not Symbols is really our approach, Leo Burnett's approach, and I think that other advertising agencies have their own approach to it, but our unique approach actually has the potential to elevate ideas and spark change in society in general, that it's not just about selling products. And I think that as Josh spoke to a bit about a transition that the advertising world is going through, which is extremely important to us and the future of the advertising industry. I'll move on to the next slide if it allows me. I apologize. It's not letting me control the screen. Anybody? Here we go. So as we all know, as Josh mentioned, advertising often speaks to the lowest denominator. It plays into prevailing norms. It speaks to dominant culture and often stereotypes. It holds standard ways of thinking and acting. It's a language that often erases differences. We gloss over how people really think and feel and their honest reality. It sometimes creates fictitious ideas, caricatures of who people really are. And as was mentioned many times before, that this reflection in what we see in television, magazines, all different kinds of media is a vicious cycle. It reflects on us and we reflect it outwards. Brands are not representing the best of us. And I really, really like this quote by Michelle Oliver. She's the Global Marketing VP at Mars, Candy. She says, there has been an unconscious acceptance of the status quo in the advertising industry, that we see things in certain boxes, in certain systems that we haven't been able to break out of. And we do see certain moves toward a more authentically inclusive reflection of people, of who people really are, of people's realities. Although, as Josh mentioned, this is really droplets in a vast, vast sea of the way people think and what is portrayed. I think that this shift embraces the need to see different kinds of people, not just the way they look, but their needs, their wants, their hopes, their aspirations, their true reality, the challenges they face, not just what they look like on the outside or their disability put in the front. That to create a meaningful connection, an authentic connection, as has been used a lot in this webinar before, with the feelings inside people that spark something deeper. And I want to bring here what's the most important part of what is behind People Not Symbols, the campaign, is Leo Burnett's approach to making advertising. This approach started long before we see the trend of more inclusive advertising. There was a book that was published by our CEO and Chief Creative Officer in 2009, and it really epitomizes at the heart of this small transformation that is starting to happen. And behind this approach is to leverage real human insights to drive actual change. So that means that we need to look deeper. We need to look at actual people, not just the people that are sitting in the office rooms that are creating these commercials, to investigate real people's needs, how they actually behave, the challenges that they're actually facing, what's really important to them, and transform these consumers into human. And these insights that we gain are the fuel for creativity. And a lot of people talk about creativity as this mysterious monster that it comes when it comes. It will be, well, a blast of lightning upon my head. And this is not how I see creativity. I'm not a creative, I'm a strategist. And I think that a lot of strategists will tell you that creativity has the backing of a lot of hard work. We call in Hebrew this ants work, the work of little ants. I myself, behind People Not Symbols, is lots and lots of investigating into other people's realities, other people's challenges, people that maybe I do not experience their same reality, to look online, how people are expressing themselves on blogs, on websites, on all the different media that they have access to speak to individual people across the board from all different backgrounds and with all different abilities. This process takes energy, a lot of time, a lot of dedication to really creating the fuel for something called creativity. And at Leo Burnett, we really believe that these insights that I work to uncover are the power of big ideas. They are this unbridled creativity of the creatives, this thought process that spins around maybe in a tornado as it's pictured, is really about these small, real moments, people's lives, that the way people really think and feel, and ultimately using those insights, powering them into creativity for the better, for change, for changing people's thoughts, changing people's actions. That's what Humankind is about. Humankind is about changing behavior of people through insights. And really, this has no limits. It can take the form of creativity, of humor, of seriousness, to embrace all different kinds of approaches to creativity. And with People Not Symbols, which I'm going to show you in a second so I can get through this presentation. I'm sorry for the length. I'm so happy that so many people were able to stay on this late. I know it's long. That behind People Not Symbols was a lot of research, a lot of speaking to Yuval, and a lot of understanding what all different kinds of people think, to investigate those moments of difficulty that people experience their realities, and to give it a face, give it a name, to portray it outwards and show people what people experience. That, this digging is into a world that exists, but most people are not privy to, that is transparent to most. And it's unfortunate because most people are living, a huge percentage of people, we can name all different statistics, but there are so many people living on a daily basis the reality that we find, that others find transparent. And we were flooded with all these insights, and we really wanted to take a small moment in time and magnify it, give it meaning, give it power, and allow it to change people's behavior, allow it to be a reflection on those that find it transparent. So I'm going to show you now the case for People Not Symbols that was very successful, and I'll just have a few closing remarks after that, and send you on your way.
You all know this symbol. It's used to identify parking spots for the disabled all over the world. And yet, every day in Israel, hundreds of healthy drivers ignore it for all kinds of reasons.
אני רק שם משהו. עד שהנכה יבוא. לאן אתה ממהר? גם ככה אתה יושב. זה בסדר. גם לי יש דודה כזאת. שתי יולדת.
Desperate for stricter enforcement of their accessibility rights, we decided to raise public awareness of the issue. Access Israel presents People, Not Symbols. For the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, we photographed 50 people with disabilities and staged them to look like the access symbol on disabled parking signs, including members of parliament, Paralympic medalists, and celebrities. Then, we replaced 4,000 disabled parking signs all over Israel with real people's pictures. The plan was to create a loud enough message so that the media and politicians would no longer be able to ignore it. And it worked.
יום הנכה הבינלאומי יזמה עמותת נגישות לישראל מבצע להחלפת תמרורי חניית הנכים בתמרורים חדשים אנושיים. יש קבוצה של בעלי מוגבלויות שיוצאת ביוזמה מקורית.
על ידי הצבת תמרורים ועליהם צילומים של 50 נכים.
לא רק סמל, אלא זה אנשים אמיתיים שבאמת צריכים.
17 major cities in Israel joined our initiative. Our message reached the hallways of the Israeli parliament, where the issue finally made it to the public's agenda and caused the government to pledge strict reforms by the end of 2018. We hope that in the future, all drivers will see the people behind the symbol and respect it.
So I hope everyone enjoyed the case. I want to say behind this case was a really important win-win situation for both the agency and Access Israel. This was highly rewarded. It won a Cannes Lion, and we received many other awards for this. It created a lot of buzz. And it also raised awareness for the issue, not just this specific issue, not just this specific moment of parking, but in general for the issues that Access Israel is promoting. It also hopefully changed people's behavior and make them look in the mirror and see the kind of transparency that they put out into the world, that they don't really look twice at their reality, at the reality of others around them. And I think the most important thing about this campaign was not just the raising awareness and those kinds of things, but also that larger impact that they speak about a little bit at the end, that helped push forward legislation. While there are still huge challenges, as Yuval is facing, huge challenges in terms of legislation, we hope that the more we can implement campaigns that are acting to change people's behavior, the more this can make an impact on the decision makers in politics. That this is the hope of the work that we do with Yuval, and the approach that we take not only to advertising brands and campaigns, but also with our partners to spark change in society that changes people's behavior, that changes people's lives, really, and elevating these small moments that really put the reality in front of us all. So I really want to thank you for having me speak here. I don't often get to speak. I'm often behind the computer researching, so I greatly appreciate it, and I hope to be a part of this in the future.
Elizabeth, we already have our first panel for October. Josh, you on the stage with probably with Deborah Rue and some other amazing people that we heard here today. So you should be more upfront on stage. You were amazing. Thank you very, very much. And you'll see the chat. It's full of a lot of great remarks. I do want to look at Cindy's remark. What about non-visible disabilities? Well, Access Israel and a lot of the network here, we are talking about everyone, including everyone. And this is definitely something that we are looking at. And we happen to have the next video. Although it's late, it is very important for us to share videos of really all disabilities. So short one by Enosh. Please, Sharon, thank you.
People with psychiatric disabilities face everyday challenges maintaining their routine. Enosh, the Israeli Mental Health Association, provides extensive rehabilitation services to achieve a meaningful and productive life.
Thank you. And I see that it is a little broken, so we will add it, and you can add it, Sharon, to the chat. We will add it and present it. This is a great video by Enosh, who is really trying to give a feeling of how it feels. And I can tell you it received amazing reactions. Well, the saying goes that it ain't over till we hear from Caroline. I always am sad.
Saying goes, it ain't till the fat lady sings. So
Yeah, well, I
seriously?
didn't say that. I stopped it at Caroline. In any case, we do have some kind of tradition, although Caroline should be one of the opening speakers, and she usually is. For us, Caroline is a best buddy and somebody that we always like to hear from her after everybody talks, because she's the best rapper-upper of all. And if we're talking about brand making, trend making, and brand and raising awareness, well, the revolution that Caroline has done and will share with us is amazing. And don't you worry, because even Elizabeth mentioned the late hour. Last webinar, about 1,500 people viewed the whole webinar afterwards. So this is all not going to waste. Everybody will enjoy it. And we are looking forward. And I'll just also say that Caroline last week has been awarded and acknowledged in the Henry Viscardi, that's the name of the award, Henry Viscardi Award, which is a great, great honor. Not a big surprise, but Caroline, please, I'll stop talking.
Can I just say, I honestly, I mean, you know that I'm a big fan of Access to Israel, but this webinar just knocked the socks off me. Just great content, great speakers. Elizabeth, if you're still here, you won't be behind any screen anymore. And just listening to the combination and the difference and bringing everybody together, it just was, wow. So I just want to say a phenomenal curation, guys. This was definitely one of your best. I'm just going to speak very quickly because we're all tired. And the first thing I want to say is, when you're starting something like this, whether it's Real Abilities, whether it's Rising Phoenix, whether it's a campaign, People Not Symbols, whether it's the work that Josh does, you can't worry about how many people are in the room. That is not what you've got to worry about. What you've got to worry about is the message that you are willing to give up your life for, and that you will relentlessly pursue until the very end. And eventually you keep going and going and it gets heard. People often think that trends sort of are these overnight successes and these moments. And I think what we're hearing is a lot of the moments that are visible come from years of really hard work, okay? And I just want to say, when we launched the Valuable 500, not even 2 years ago, which I do need to keep saying, on the main stage of the World Economic Forum in Davos, with 5 of the world's most influential CEOs, with this iconic search for 500 brands. Okay, this was amazing. The room was a third full. And I thought the big job was going to be to get the stage, to convince them that we were going to do it, right? And I thought that was going to be the hardest thing. But it wasn't. When I had the honor of being with Amit, who you've seen at one of the stages in Adweek in September of 2019, with the CEO of Interbrand, one of the biggest creative agencies in the world, there was a handful of people in the audience. So the reason I say this to open this, I don't care if there's one person listening here or just our friends, because actually it's about staying the course and flexing and pivoting and finding the way and never losing the passion for this message and change that we want to see. There is nothing more potent than an idea whose time has come. And I am going to say to you right now, it's not because we're all here and we're friends. This is our time. Now, I've been saying it and hoping it. Really, probably I've been saying this is our time since 2012. And those of you who know me, who see us moderate and do the Zero conference, I keep saying, this is our time. No, this is our time. And just for all of us who have worked hard and fallen and failed and picked ourselves back up again and found a way. This is the moment. And the key to any trend that's going to be lasting, I'm not interested in a trend, okay? I want a seismic momentum that is going to just transform systems that we will never come back from. And the key to that is this conversation right here, right now. And if we were to join all the dots up of all of these powerful panelists and moderators and films and ideas and conversations, and every one of you who is currently not standing here and speaking or sitting here and speaking, how can you tell me it's not our time? Because it's like Access Israel. I say this all the time, so I'm sorry to bore you all, but it's like the line of fairy lights that go around Christmas trees, for those of us who have Christmas trees. It's the line, that electricity line that joins all of those little lights. And Access Israel and many organizations like it, like Purple Light Up, like the Valuable 500 with Business, like all of the ones that we've already heard, like the International Paralympics, we can go on and on and on. They're the socket that hold us all together. So key to making long-lasting movements that will deliver change, which begin on trends, is collaboration. It's about leaving those egos, which we all have, at the door. And we all have them. And if anybody doesn't, well, fair play to you, because we all do. It's about realizing that if somebody else wins, I don't lose. We all win. And so I think that is a huge part of what made the Valuable 500 become that incredible moment of breaking a circuit at boardroom level. As I came on today, one of the world's biggest brands has just signed. I'm still reeling, that's why I've been on and off. So we're at 370 companies, and that is against all of the odds. But what it does say to all of us right now, it gives all of us permission for all of those ideas of campaigns that you had, or ideas and initiatives, now is the time to make them happen. I'm going to end with 3 things because I want people to really hear this, and my voice is going to wobble. If you think that you are too small, or too insignificant, or too old, or too ugly, or too wallpapery, or too blah to make big shit happen, you are absolutely wrong. Okay? The only thing that you need to do to make long-lasting change happen is to believe in yourself and go down into yourself and not worry how many people are in the room, but know that it is authentic. And that is the most important thing about creating a zeitgeist trend. A zeitgeist trend is uncompromisingly committing to what you believe in, not allowing other people tell you, oh, but you could do it this way, or you should do it that way. No, stick to your guns. And I can speak to that for the years that I have done this. But if I had listened to any person about the Valuable 500 and compromised to what they said was happening, this would not have happened. So that's number 1. Number 2, create FOMO, fear of missing out. Human beings hate being left out, and we love a bit of competition. If you want to create an unstoppable movement, you must create a fear of missing out. You must find a way to reach into everybody's hearts and minds. And the reason I say that is because that moment, there's always a critical mass, there's always a tipping point, there's always just that inflection point that you fought and then you fly, okay? And the only way that I know how to do that is to engage with actually the fear of missing out. The third thing that I can honestly tell you is whenever you're trying to create this moment, please use that beautiful potency, the inflection point between data, science, realism, case, and your humanity in your heart. Because at the very source of the Valuable 500, Josh said it so beautifully, is to create a world where everybody belonged. That is what our heart is. In our logo is a heart. Loads of companies were a little bit critical of the fact that it was a business movement and had a heart in it. No, I will not compromise on the humanity of this issue. But what is more appealing than the heart of this issue is the potency of the economics and the heart. So as I close, I'm going to use my heart and my head. We know the figures. We know the time. We know COVID's breakdown gives us a breakthrough. So I'm asking all of us to support each other in each other's ambitions, to pat each other on the back, to be each other's light when we get dark. I want to thank Access Israel for spreading their huge arms around the world. And we need to do exactly the same in doing that. I encourage you to watch Diversish because that is at the heart of everything that we believe. You do not get to have an a la carte version of inclusion. Everyone means everyone. You cannot carve us up. And now you can use your voice. Now you use your voice. But if you want to create a trend, an unstoppable force, you cannot cancel other people out for having a different opinion. You just need to open your doors and let them come into your tent. And if you don't want, you put more fairy lights up in your tent to make them come through the door. So I finished tonight by saying this has been an incredible near 4 hours of storytelling and heart and ambition and passion and resilience and grit. And I just want to say the only thing that you need to know about making a movement happen or a trend, it doesn't happen in a moment. It happens through a lifetime. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, everybody's on mute, but clapping the hands and raising them, Caroline, as always. Ricardo wrote addictive. I'm very happy, and you're definitely a big part. But you said the fear of being left out, right? Fear of missing out. Well, no pressure, guys, but we are up to 370 of January. 1 second. The end of January, we are going to close this, right, at 500?
Yeah, so we have, we just have another 130 companies, my friends. Elizabeth, if you're still there, I think you had Pizza Hut, Samsung, and a few there. I need them. I need everybody and anything who can get us companies over 1,000. We only have 130 places left. We shut the community and we go to phase 2, which will be the revolution that shakes up the business system. So companies are either in or out, and that's it. We shut on the 30th of January.
Totally. And for the Israeli crowd here, Israel can be proud because we have about 42 out of 370. 42. So again, my aim is to get to 50. So I have 10 more to go. And Elizabeth, when you're adding those companies, talk to me because we needed an R card, not competitive or anything. I'm just saying, you know. But thank you very much. Now, 2 last things. First of all, I really want to share with you Diversish, which is a great ending to all this. It's one of the best really changing awareness and putting the mirror in front of our faces kind of ad. But before that, I will just let you know already, because people have been asking, January 26th is going to be our next webinar, and it is going to focus on technologies. So don't tell me a day before the webinar, oh, I have an amazing technology I want to include. Now, in the next month is your time. You have an idea, you want to recommend about something, just send it to us. Send it to us. We would love to include it. Put it in the website. We're going in there and we're gaining information from there. This is really going to be a very, very interesting and fascinating webinar. As always, we will start by saying it's going to be a 1.5 to 2 hours webinar. Probably will end up at around 3.5, 4 hours. But excuse me, I really hope you're going to enjoy it still. And again, I want to thank our amazing, amazing speakers and the amazing network. Guys, it's you. It's all about you. We couldn't have done it without you. So thank you very much. And remember, mark the calendars, beginning of October 21, we can have dinner together here in Israel. Looking forward to it. COVID, beware. And now Diversish. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you for amazing superstar, rock star sign language interpreters. I'd love to see how they sign that thing. You are amazing, as always, and an integral part of this webinar. So Diversish is on. Have a great night and bye-bye.
Gracias, adiós. Buena charla.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Disfruten.
Thank you. Gracias.
Muchas gracias desde España. Buena tarde. Buen día y buena noche. Buen día, buenas noches, buenas tardes a todos.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. And now Diversish. Let's go.
So this year you've announced that diversity is at the heart of your brand agenda. How does that address disability?
That's a terrific question. And the thing is, I think this is all about inclusivity. So this year, for instance, Chris, we sponsored a float at the gay parade.
We have women, lots of women. They're like everywhere. Tim's Asian and gay too, which is great. Which is great. 2 for 1 right there.
So have you ever had people with disabilities appear in your advertising?
Sure we have. I'm sure we have. Yeah, I would think that is super likely. So.
We're 100% committed to considering a range of clothing for the disabled, further on down the line.
So this is Bill. He's paraplegic, isn't that right, Sharon? And you're on our diversity page on our website, aren't you, Bill?
Yes, I'm the only one currently.
Tremendous addition to the team.
Disability is something that we are committed to investing in very soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
2019 est déjà consacré à célébrer la femme, l'avenir est féminin et tout ça.
The 2019 is earmarked for BAME. BAME means a lot to me personally.
2020?
Ice caps.
2021?
Mindfulness.
Because do you have a year in mind for people with disabilities?
Well,
yes, absolutely. I mean, just watch this space. That's what I can say. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. And my favorite part now, bye from Israel. Thank you very much all for being here. Have an amazing continue of days. Laila Tov, good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Ricardo.
You are. I can see you.
I love seeing you here.
Yeah.
Bye. Good to see you, Mikhail.
You look great. You look great.
You are looking better.
You've been on a holiday. You've been on the beach, right?
Yeah, doing nothing,
On the Zoom beach.
It's Zoom beach.
Aisha, good to see you.
Doron Hyman.
Good to see you too.
Yes.
Hello, Aisha.
Hello. Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
guys.
Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye. I'm going off to home.
Bye-bye.
You burned
Bye-bye.
the beard. You burned it. Yeah.
Thank you. Great to see you all. See you next month.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.